not live.
It is on my side. It says live.
Really?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, shit.
Hi, everyone.
Why does it say live? Oh, maybe it is.
What's going on, everybody? We are live. I don't know if we as a crew know we are live, but in my corner it says live. Anyways, what up, dudes and chicks and everybody out there? Cali Death Podcast, episode 194. I'm your host, Anthony Trapani. As always, here with my resident homies. I got a couple of them with me right now. The silverback gorilla himself, Joel Horner, will be here shortly as soon as that Kansas City Chiefs game ends. But I got Joseph K and Casey Howard's back this week, dude. Casey, we missed you last week.
I was on at the end. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he made it.
We missed you for most of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. It's a little busy, you know.
Yeah, no, life happens, dude. It's all good. Welcome
It's
back. It's
incredible that you made it on, Anthony, despite all the stuff going on in your life right now.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
True.
Mm-hmm.
No, dude, I whenever I can, I only missed last week. Well, what am I talking about, dude? I didn't miss anything last week. It was Casey who missed. So, but yeah, that might happen again in the near future. But it's all for a good cause, and that's all good. I'm here this week, and this week we are joined by Thomas Mellan. Mellan.
That's right.
I enjoy that there's an American version of your last name because there's an American version of mine that I use as well, even though it's said different ways in different places. So, yeah, dude. What's going on, Thomas?
Hell yeah. I'm just so happy to be here. I can't believe I said this before the pod, but I'm ready to retire. This is it. Like this is the moment I've been working for my entire life.
I said it pre-pod as well. Don't retire. Keep doing it because you're a very talented man, and you need to keep going. I actually didn't even get your age. How old are you?
I gotta think about this. I'm 29.
Dude,
yeah.
There's no retiring now. No way, dude. You're not even close to that.
That's funny.
You might even be younger than Joseph. I don't know.
Yes, that's true.
Joseph's in his 30s now, dude. Remember he turned 30 during the show?
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
During the first year, probably.
Yep.
And
Joseph's 34.
That's correct.
Okay.
Damn.
Which is a cool
from your planet. How old are you? Like, seriously.
Me?
Oh man.
I'm the oldest.
No, I was saying Joseph. Like
Joseph. Yeah.
How from your planet? You know, the planet where there's professors like you.
Professor planet.
Actually, I'm also 34 there.
What would it be like to peer into a planet of just professors, dude? Everybody's trying to teach everybody everything, dude.
The last of Lucy is just 5 drummers.
Yeah. The council is just 5 drummers.
It looks like this, actually.
That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah. Just with more colors.
Yeah. That's everyone is on the right, teaching the people on the left. So
crazy planet, dude.
Oh man, it was crazy.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much, Thomas, for being with us, dude. He's actually an organist that we've come across on social media that is fascinating, and your musicianship and when you play, it's very entertaining, dude. We talked about it pre-pod how I feel that playing the organ is very percussive and drummer-esque because
for sure.
You're using all your limbs. There's no other instrument that's doing that. Well, pedal players, the guitar players that hit all the pedals, that's
true.
Kind of I would say that could be in the same family, but using all your limbs to create music and the way that you do and your covers that you play, all that, totally entertaining. I'm waiting for your videos every day, dude. So
that is so nice. You guys are awesome.
Totally.
I'm looking forward to talking about all this because I feel like I discovered you guys with the Luke LeMay episode because I was on like this brutal tech death kind of Spotify, dungeon kind of a sesh, and Gorguts came on, and I was just totally blown away. I just pressed replay on nostalgia like a million times. And then I was like, who is this guy? And he, like, literally the day before, I just like 4 hours of Luke LeMay, and it was with you guys, and I was like, well, these guys know what's up, so like, what else are they posting about? So like, you guys have been a huge part of me, like, understanding and getting to know different bands, and like every time you guys post some stuff, I'm like, you gotta go follow those guys. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. So
sick,
cheers.
dude.
Yeah,
this is cool. I'm glad that we could do that for you, dude. And it's just, you know, the love of the game, dude, and being exposed to all the, like, Luke being a legend in our eyes for 2+ decades, you know. To be able to sit down with him for 4 hours was dream-esque, you know. I kind of black out during those episodes now that I think about it. Like the Paul Masvidal episode, Steve DiGiorgio,
like James Murphy, I think you guys had on at that point sometime.
Yeah, dude, and those interviews, it's very centering and just making me be in the present moment, and then I totally forget it. Well, also I'm smoking weed and drinking the whole time too, but we're hanging.
We know, Anthony. We know.
Cool.
And I could go back and that's what's great about doing it as a podcast, is even though I don't really re-listen to or watch episodes, we're archiving these conversations. And, you know, Luke, again, hearing that might be his first long-form English interview. Somebody had mentioned that, and I thought that you can't really find a long-form English.
And the only other interview of him on YouTube was like this 5-minute thing where he's sitting in front of some building in Montreal talking about, I think I like 20th century music and I like this and that. It doesn't really give you a whole lot of info, and he's such a deep guy. You're like, wow. I also love that you guys don't like edit stuff and all that, because the authenticity and how casual and how down to earth, like you guys that are like legends in the Cali death scene, and then these like death metal legend guys like Luke and stuff, like just coming on and just chatting it up and being so real about stuff is so refreshing, coming from classical music and from all these from these fields that aren't so welcoming and open-minded. It's so refreshing.
Yeah, we talk about death metal elitism, which if you compare it to classical elitism, I'm sure there's a very bigger percentage of elitism in the classical realm.
My genre is more elite than yours. Yeah.
But it you know, it's just maybe the humble. We're humbled people. We're real people. We just enjoy technical, complex, mind-bending music, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, man. I'm just saying thank you. Like, that's really cool, man. It's just really cool to hear like someone say nice stuff, and then just being friends, and we're all just friends, like having a good time, and like it's like us, like you know, when you get that excitement, you get to like play a show with a band that you really like admire, like, for whatever, you know, and then you meet them and they're all super cool. Like that's how we feel when we do episodes with people. Like, but it doesn't matter. Like if it's like if we have a guest on like Luke LeMay or you know whatever, someone that's like super famous to us, like playing with a band that's bigger than us, and we're like super stoked, and then we meet them and they're super cool, and we're like, man, now we like are friends with those guys, and you know, or the other way down, a band that opens for us, and they're like, dude, we're like, oh man, dude, thanks, like you know, it's like, we're like wherever we are on the bill is like not really. I mean, I don't know. It's just cool, man.
We just want to bring positive energy, dude. And that's a great metaphor, dude, of being wherever you're at on the bill, just being real people and trying to not only have a good experience yourself, but make sure that everybody around you is having a good experience too. And so just being yourself is the easiest way to do it. And that's why the fuck we've been doing this for 194 episodes now.
It's crazy.
And I'll chime in here that it's like Thomas is kind of like the audience I was hoping we'd get, like real ass musicians who just want to learn more. Like at first, you know, it's kind of like really deep dive into like a particular history of like this particular music scene. And then as it like kind of opened up, it was like so cool that we got to interview all these people. But what's so cool is how people have been on the journey with us, and maybe people who don't know as much of what we know already and then are discovering stuff as we go. And that's just super cool. So
it's cool when it goes the other way around, when it's like you guys are talking about a band, but someone like me is also discovering that band that, you know, I mean, I discovered a whole lot of stuff. Like when I started listening to you guys, I'd seen Suffo in some Spotify playlists and been like, okay, like I know I got to listen to those guys. They're big. And then I think it may have been with the Luc Lemay interview. You guys were like, yeah, Suffo's like, you know, it's all Suffo. And it was like, all right. I literally paused because I watch usually on Friday mornings because Thursday night is, you know, church choir practice.
Nice.
If you're an organist, yeah, classic.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, we're putting on Pierced, and that was it. So like even really classic stuff I've discovered. That's not at all like Cali Death stuff. So yeah, this is so
Pierced is the original Necrophagus epitaph.
That's true. Yeah. I was going to say, Pierce is probably mentioned more than any other album on this podcast.
We're still trying to figure it out. 95 came out.
It's God, yeah,
goated. That term gets used too much, but it's a goated album. So
yeah, for sure.
That's the Cristiano Ronaldo of EM albums. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a raid. Oh, sorry. Shout out. Whoever rated us, I actually don't know, but it's cool. We got a few people in the Twitch right now. So.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
Sweet.
So hey, Thomas, I normally ask you to go back in time, but first, since we were just talking about it, I want to know how you discovered metal.
Yeah,
coming from being an organist.
Yeah. Well, this is weird. I started out as a guitar player when I was like 6 years old. I was born in France, and my parents moved to the States when I was 5. Yeah, and I was homeschooled, which is like, don't try that at home. It sucks. But
so wait, only French when you came over here speaking?
Yeah.
Wow. Where in France were you from?
I was born in Lyon, which is like kind of close to, it's a second or maybe third now, I guess, largest city in France.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of memories there. My memories from France are mostly from Grenoble, like where the mountains are. It's really beautiful there. Then my parents moved to the States, and I just remember one of my last memories from France is seeing like the Blues Brothers with my grandpa and being like, God, that's so sick. And then being at Carrefour, which is sort of like French Walmart kind of, and like there was like a 3/4 sized acoustic guitar that was like sitting there like on a shelf somewhere, and I was like, I got to do that. And then in the States, like I got into like the local guitar studio, Moonlight Music in Encinitas. You guys know that place?
Oh, what?
Yeah. I went there. I took lessons there for like 7 years.
Really?
When I was a kid.
Dude,
yeah.
Don't tell me Isaiah was your teacher.
No, but I hung out with him a bunch.
Okay. Isaiah Mitchell from Earthless, the band Earthless. You might have heard of Earthless. They're fucking
and the Black Crowes for a bit, right? Or is he still there? I forget.
I don't know.
I think he was playing lead for the Black Crowes.
What? He was? Isaiah? Crazy.
Yeah.
He's my buddy from, I went to high school with him. I went to San Diego and Encinitas. I'm in Oceanside now.
Yeah.
I grew up here and stuff. But yeah, man, that's so cool. Yeah, Moonlight Music, dude. I used to go there all the time and buy like distortion pedals or whatever.
Yeah, freaking Russell and all those guys. That's crazy.
That's crazy, man.
Well, it's so crazy. So I was with a guy named Chris Metters there. I remember, don't know if you know, Chris Metters. He actually just passed away about 1.5 years ago or something like that.
No, I don't.
Incredible teacher. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he got me into like Van Halen and Steve Vai and Yngwie and stuff. Like when I was like 8 or 9 or 10. And so like I remember the last thing I played on guitar before I was like, oh, organ's cool. It's like Attitude song, Steve Vai. Badly. Like there's a recording of me like on a Skype microphone banging a tambourine and then trying to play the Attitude song over it. I'm like 11. And then I got into like, I think I was in a guitar orchestra with Peter Puppin guitar.
Oh, dude. Okay. This is getting
crazy. Like, you're like, wait, this is my backyard.
That's crazy, dude.
Okay, so Peter was my teacher. like forever, since I was like 8. And my buddy Richard Houghton, like we talked about a bunch. He's like a musician in LA and stuff. But he like we all did lessons with Peter like at the same age, and we all kind of like have the same like, dude, Peter's insane, man. I went to see one of his concerts again like last year.
Crazy. You guys are
kept in touch.
Super linked.
What?
Yeah.
Were you also born in France and came to the States?
That's insane.
Crazy.
I was going to ask you when you're talking about Encinitas. I was like, you know about Peter? He like runs the Encinitas Guitar Orchestra and all that.
I played with them for like 3 or 4 years. Like there was like a Union Tribune article, and then they caught a picture of me. I don't know how they did that, but the reporter, I'm like 8 or 9, and I'm like hugging my guitar somehow like this, like a really like, you know, when you go back through your little kid pictures once in a while, you're like, all right, I guess it was a cute kid.
Yeah.
It sucked, but you know. That's crazy.
Where are you
wild,
living now? Again?
What was that?
I said, where are you living now?
I'm in LA.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm up here. I went to USC for a bit, but yeah, I got into organ from a YouTube video of like seeing this guy named Louis Vierne, this organist from the 30s, who was this virtuoso, this composer guy playing Bach.
I'm gonna need to find this video.
The professor at work, dude.
There he is,
doing his job.
He's downloading all my computer history here from 2008.
What's the name of the song he's playing?
It's if you look up Bach Vierne, it's Vierne, and
found his name.
It should be. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
but before we jump like quite to that,
yeah,
I just want like so do you still play guitar or do you just do organ stuff?
I do. I kind of got back into guitar about 2 years ago ish. I kind of brought out I have this like this Strat, and then I got like the cheap Jackson 7-string, and I've been like, I feel like my right hand is kind of stuck a little bit, and my left hand's total shit. Like I can't play it. But I've been trying to learn, like work on like pierced riffs and stuff like that. I can kind of get around some stuff, but it's a little hard with overlapping that with organ, just because I feel like to really play death metal guitar, you really have to do it. And like the right hand, I have this like ulnar nerve thing that I'm looking out for at the keyboard that like I have to be intentional about what I do,
dude. That's a thing real quick, just like to like kind of dedicate your body to a certain instrument, like in a way. True. Like, you know, like you can play multiple ones, but you're gonna really get gnarly. Like you kind of like have to like, it's like, I don't know, like, right, like
that's so true.
So how old were you when you kind of like were kind of ending your, or not ending, but like kind of seeing organ like this video
transitioning?
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, I was like 12 or 13.
Okay, so pretty young.
Yeah, well, I was like I think I was 10 or 11 when I started listening to classical music, when I was like, oh, this Beethoven guy is kind of cool, and like kind of started to learn classical guitar a little bit, and then like I got like staff paper and was just like, what? So you can like write this is how you do it? Like this is crazy. And like all I need is like a pencil and like a ruler and you're good. And then by the time I was 13, I was like, whoa, the like organ exists, and like there's like 400 Bach pieces for it. And this video, it's Joseph was looking up. It's just like a you know, like the 2005 or 6 YouTube kind of like, it's just a cheesy slideshow with like 40 seconds per picture of some organ somewhere.
Yeah.
And then a scratchy audio.
I think I found it. Notre Dame de Paris, Vierne plays Bach, 1929 recording.
That's right.
Dude, 103K views, not even that many.
Dude, but a few of those counted for me. That's all me, and like 100K of those are all me from.
That's
I would
hilarious,
have never in my life guessed that you started on guitar and switched to organ. I was assuming you were like a kid given piano lessons by your parents, and then only recently you like decided to pick up guitar.
That's the normal trajectory, right?
Right.
You shouldn't say normal. Above average.
Well, because the deal with Vierne is like he was this like blind guy who's like his family died, like I think I might be wrong, but I think his brother died in World War I. And at that point in Paris with the early automobiles, like the cathedral was just totally black from the soot from the early engines. And it just this guy playing this really dark music on this grainy recording in a black cathedral was just the most metal thing I'd ever seen. And to be fair with you, if as an 11-year-old someone had shown me Megadeth or even Metallica, or let alone like Death and stuff, all this stuff, if someone had shown me stuff that was like, I remember working on like Trilogy Suite Yngwie, being like, I like this, but I just wish I didn't have this vocab, but I just wish it was a little heavier, you know? I just wish, I guess like Uli John Roth is as heavy as it gets. And dude, Scorpions and stuff, and I was just never exposed to it, which is
you're making me think about because we've talked over all these episodes about people's pathways to metal, right? And
they're also
years out of all of it, it's very unique because the feel is what brought you there. It's not the sound of the music. You know, we talk about your stepping stones to get there, whether it be punk to thrash to, you know, all that stuff, but you're actually drawn to it by the feel, because you're talking about this dark cathedral playing a dark, evil sounding music on an instrument that is so out of touch with metal. But the feel is what made you discover it, because
and like going to music school, they're like in that music history textbook. I hate music history, but music history textbook, they're like, so like Sturmendrang was like this big thing in like Viennese classical music in the 1700s, of like I forget what drang means, but like sort of like those battle paintings, or like those like 17th century paintings of the shipwrecks and stuff, or like you know, or like the 19th century engravings of Satan killing people and stuff, and it's kind of, I traced it all the way back to ancient Greece, where like I forget who it is, but one of those Greek guys writes about catharsis, and like in those Greek tragedies wanting to like scream and yell about the most horrific shit, and you know, have cool percussion instruments and early prototype pipe organs of the time, actually, to kind of make the darkest stuff they could come up with to like get it out of your system. And I guess back then it was so you wouldn't kill people, but
I mean, it's kind of the same thing today. none of us are murderers because we get it out on the kid or the
and then he's like, severed saviors was keeping me from driving trucks into malls. But you're totally right. It's the feel.
It is, dude. And that's actually, now that you're making me think about it, it's like the therapeutic aspect of dark music has been there since we've been making music.
Since we've been making art, like on caves, it's like people getting mauled by tigers and stuff. It's like
the what is it? The Carpe Diem, or Memento Mori. One day I shall die too. You know, it's
and then like as I got into classical music, there's just so much stuff. Like Liszt has this piece for piano and orchestra called Dance of Death, literally. And it's about these like medieval woodcuts of like the Dies Irae, this like Catholic chant of the dead from the 1300s. And it's just the most metal shit ever. It's like the ground opens up and armies of skeletons come out and just gnaw people to death. And it's like in the Liszt piano piece, it's these like crazy runs up and down, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of always been around. And there's even like a part with like these fast repeated notes on the keyboard. It's like, oh shit, that's like the tremolo picking in death metal. And so I feel like coming around to death metal and like you guys helping me discover all sorts of bands and stuff, I feel like there's a similar element, like you were saying, using your whole body to play an instrument, but also the kind of practice that you need to, as a guitarist, or in your case, like you talking just with the Severed stuff, Anthony, a vocalist, like building that stamina to get through an hour of that shit and doing it from memory. And it's not, I feel like it's not something that all kinds of musicians can necessarily wrap their mind around, even though everything takes work and effort and skill and all that. But it's a specific kind of targeted practice that I feel is really athletic, that death metal knows probably better than any genre.
I definitely work up a sweat when I'm doing it, so there's something going on in my body while I'm doing it.
Or I mean the two drummers here, like you're like,
Yeah, I'm slightly perspiring. These guys are steaming by the end of their sets.
Wow. Yeah, it's I was just telling someone today that like I wasn't good at sports, but I was good at music, and then I figured out how to turn music into a sport. So then I feel kind of vindicated that I like.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah,
it's a legit form of cardio that you guys are doing. And to take it back to Thomas, you're doing the same thing, dude. When I'm watching your hands and feet go, your whole body is into it when you're playing.
It's cardio unless you're Lile Gruber. He just seems like he's just sitting at an office just whipping
That's what looking at an Olympian, run around the track,
Yeah.
Takes a lot longer for those guys to break a sweat.
I'm gonna interject a fan question because I think it's a timeline relevant. Was it difficult finding somewhere to consistently practice the organ?
It always is. Even now, it's always like, you're right in places like, hey, can I come practice? Sometimes it's at night and stuff. In Encinitas, I was really lucky because Peter Pupping's orchestra played at this church, Bethlehem Lutheran Church, up by, you'll know, Encinitas Boulevard. I forget the cross street now. I've been there in such a long time.
You're talking about the one by at the they always do the recitals at. Yeah, I went to the concert.
Oh my God.
It's right by San Miguel High School.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is that street that it goes by Oak Crest? I went to junior high there, but it's that. It's not Encinitas Boulevard. It's
I've driven it a million times. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
You it too well. You just don't look at the sign anymore.
Yeah.
So that's the hack, though,
church.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's the hack. You join the local church as a player.
I didn't even play for their services. I wrote them as a little kid, and they were super chill. There was a lady there, the priest there is named Pastor Laura. She was like, "You can come play anytime you want during the week, as long as we're not doing anything in the church." So, and it was this really small kind of dinky organ, but like that kind of generosity is kind of what you bank on to get access. Yeah.
Aren't the acoustics of a church actually really beneficial?
The church is like the body of an acoustic guitar. That's like and actually in San Diego with the Spreckles organ down in there you go. That's it.
Velour.
Oh man, you got special ops. Yeah, this is awesome.
Go get saved, dude.
That's like 2 blocks from my high school.
That's our first plug on the show. We didn't do any plugs in the beginning. We just ran right into it.
We gotta get Bethlehem Lutheran Church, also Battle Forge Coffee.
Yeah. Hey, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Timing, and while you're at it, dude, after church, go to generatorrehearsalstudios.com, dude.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to jam out right after because you're inspired by the organ player during the mass, dude.
Got to clean the Jesus off of you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so crazy, dude. Do you know the guitarist Phil Kagi? Or that guy? Peter's really into him. He's like a really cool guitarist, but I have like a picture of me in that church with him playing, and I'm like, I don't know, like 11 or 12, and I've like dyed long hair, and I'm just like playing the blues with him or something. Like he like put me up there, but yeah, I was in that with all the like stained glass behind me.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty church. That's crazy.
Baptize me in Battle Forge Coffee, dude.
Is that a comment?
Baptize me in Battle Forge Coffee, dude.
Yeah.
Just keep me long enough to where I can gulp some down before I get out of there.
There you go.
Ready for my day, dude.
Then you're caffeinated and ready for life.
So did you grow up in Encinitas? We were to talk about this. I can't remember, but
I think the first place in the San Diego area was when I was 5 or 6. It was like Carmel Valley, and then my parents kind of moved up a zip code every couple of years. I ended up in Encinitas. I think 2005 is when they settled in Encinitas, so that's kind of where I spent most of my time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, my parents were in La Costa.
Nice.
So like in Carlsbad, and then
how far is that from Encinitas?
Not super far, but
I grew up right above that Target in Encinitas, so I could just see La Costa from the backyard. Yeah.
What, 20-30 minutes, something like that? Well, LA traffic. Well, it's not LA.
In LA traffic, it's an hour, but yeah, it's probably 15 minutes.
So you mean the new Target? Because the old Target was by Rico's Taco Shop.
Then it's probably the new Target.
Yeah, New Target. I'm talking like 90s New Target. Like,
okay,
the whole world, dude.
But it's New Thomas
too.
The
Target
yeah. But yeah, it used to be up there. Now there's been a gym there forever and all that. But yeah, I know you're talking about now. Yeah. My mom was over there in those retirement in the like La Costa Glen. It's like right there by the.
Oh yeah, you like by the lagoon, right? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's cool, man. Well, nice. That's super.
An hour later, we'll be talking about individual geocaching spots that
yeah. Peter's the shit, though. He's a badass.
Seriously,
yeah, he is, dude. If he taught you guys, I mean,
he got me into like I looking back, it's probably Peter Pupping that was like, have you checked out?
That's a cool name too.
We should get Peter on the podcast and have you back on, Thomas. And we should all.
That'd be so
Richard
sick.
On.
Dude, that'd be rad.
And get Russell, and then get Isaiah, just like a total.
Oh man,
Thomas and Joel family reunion.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
So we still haven't gotten to how you discovered metal, though, dude. So what you were saying you weren't exposed to it. How did you get exposed to it?
I going to school. I met a really, really, really good friend of mine, Tristan, out there. I went to USC for a really long time. I was like I did my undergrad there, and then I got 2 master's degrees there, which is with that and $1.50 you can get a cup of tea. But he showed up as a freshman, and he was like, dude, cool stuff. Because at that point, like I kind of go in extremes. At that point, I was full on like 20th century classical music. I'm a Boulez, Xenakis, Stockhausen guy, and like if your stuff isn't atonal, it ain't shit. And like I was just totally within that,
Yeah.
And so Tristan showed up and was like, dude, have you heard of Meshuggah? I was like, no. And he played me like Born in Dissonance and some stuff, and then he played me some Lamb of God and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, this is cool. It took me a second to get into it, and then this is strange, but like I feel like listening to Rust in Peace, Megadeth, was kind of like the bridge between I can like hear like real intentionality, like coming from a classical background with theory, blah blah blah, and the pitches and Marty Friedman solos and all that. And it's not so out there that I can still link it with the Van Halen that I did as a kid.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Then from there it was just, I feel like the pretty usual, well, this is cool. I'm kind of sick of these songs though. What's heavier than this? And then like being really into Meshuggah. I feel like what got me into Meshuggah wasn't so much the rhythm stuff, because I from coming from like 20th century classical music, that rhythmic stuff, it's extremely clever and like, only they can really pull it off, and it's super sick. But when it comes to like rhythmic complexity, it's kind of on the simpler side compared to a lot of the classical music that was written kind of in the 1950s to 80s that I was into at the time. But it was just the sound and the production of like the kicks and those 8-string guitars and the bass hitting at the same time, and then Thorndal's atonal solos over it. I was just totally blown away, and I was like, well, what else sounds like this? I know all their albums. And then it was a strange kind of, I feel like I came to death metal from both sides, from like classical music and from Yngwie, and then coming back with like Meshuggah and Animals as leaders. And I was like, well, so what, looking at the Wikipedia fact or fiction thing on YouTube, like, so what influenced Thomas Hawk? And he's like, Slayer. I was like, never heard of him, put him on. And Rain and Blood came on, and I just played that album 3 times in a row the first time I heard it. I just sat there like, you can do that?
Dude,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and then your map is very in and out. Like you're kind of like a free diver, and you're getting to a certain point where it's like, all right, dude, I got to turn back around. I got to go back up.
If you saw me try to get a load of laundry done, it would all make sense that it's just.
But that's cool, dude. I mean, it's just unique. You kind of remind me of Vaughn from Defeated.
Oh my god, I love that.
From jazz to death metal later on, and just to find your way from a place that seems further out than you would think to get to, but you still got there through your experiences and what downloads and upgrades you got, you know, and it's just cool. It's fascinating to me. That's
like Dave Lombardo is a genius, but who's this guy? Like, you know, who's the guy playing on the Suffo records? Like, that guy's pretty good, or you know.
And the fact that you haven't mentioned Metallica too, that makes you very unique, because so many people mention Metallica. Megadeth is actually and then you discovered Slayer. And
well, because I had like I had a little bit of a metalhead in my friend Tristan to kind of, you know, he was he was like very much like, you're either a Megadeth fan or a Metallica fan. You just got, you know, like, so listen to Rest in Peace.
Okay. Was he also in the music school at USC?
Yeah, he was a composition major there. So he went brilliant guitar player, also like a crazy runner. He's like, I think his mile time's now like 4:12 or something like that. He does everything. Incredible composer and ridiculous guitar player. So yeah, he got me into a bunch of that stuff. It's so cool, man, listening to you guys talk with Vaughn. And I think before or after that, I went to hear like Defeated in Boston. I was living in Boston for a couple of years. And like Dave Davidson shows up, and like Vaughn is there selling t-shirts, and Lile's just chilling, and like Josh is there, and I'm just like, these guys, do you know how hard it would be to meet classical musicians? Like, if I go hear Daniel Trifanoff or some incredible musician, or Yuja Wang, or some incredible concert pianist like that, how hard it would be to meet them. And how like Vaughn is just like, oh, like, what do you do? You know, he's super interested in what you're doing. That was like my first real, like, you know, I've been to a bunch of DM shows before that, but like meeting the guys and realizing how incredibly open-minded and accepting and just, it's all one big family. And like the Chuck thing of like, you got to be a fan first and all that. It's just so, it's like what music should really be about. I feel like this humility and this focus on this music that everyone shares. It's so cool.
Did you see? I mean, on posted today on Facebook, he got like not hacked but duplicated, and someone's like selling shirts, you know, of his stuff.
Yeah, I got tagged by the duplicate.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh dude, Vaughn tagged me in something. What's up? And I hit that thing, and it's like, oh, you like this shirt? Buy it here. Blah blah blah. It
happened to Diego for Discord the other day, and it's like, I feel like, honestly, guys, I know it's annoying, but it's like, that's when you know you've made it.
Yeah, you're on the radar of the fucking bots,
that's when you've death metal made it, is when there's someone impersonating you on Facebook trying to
Is Vaughn selling a profanity shirt?
No, he's selling a Vaughn shirt. It just says Vaughn Stoffi on it.
Dude, it's so funny. And it's all like, this says like excellent musician or something. I don't know if that's the one. Like, someone posted it, like they found. I don't think it's the right.
Dude,
utterly fantastic.
I tried to. I made
it has an acoustic guitar with like flames or something. It's like,
I tried to make a Vaughn Stoffi chat GPT logo. I was like, make me a logo of Vaughn Stoffi in the based on the Suffocation logo, and it totally gave me something like a
musical legend, dude. Musical.
I want that shirt really bad, actually.
It actually is.
As it goes hard.
I kind of still does have a Vaughn feel, but
God,
Vaughn needs something different than that, dude. I think Vaughn's complexity as a musician needs something a little more intricate than that simple stuff. But that was still a good shirt. Anything with that man's name on it, I would write.
That's like the Dave's Hot Tubs font, by the way, the Vaughn Stoffi. But yeah, so yeah, it's crazy because Vaughn like got into metal through going to a Defeated Sanity show, and then he's kind of like bringing the same energy that was, you know, that he got from that to the next people coming to see when it's him actually playing. So that's a really cool kind of like torch passing kind of style situation. Yeah,
that's exactly what happened. It's so cool. Yeah.
And Dave Davidson, dude, holy shit, one of the greatest.
Seriously, I just spotted him. I'm sure there were other great death metal people there I didn't recognize, but Dave Davidson, just chatting with him and being like, I'm trying to do this, like trying to make metal that has like this and this and that and this kind of rhythm and blah blah. And he's like, well, have you listened to Meshuggah? And I'm like, yeah. And I just had a whole conversation. It's crazy to have someone of that at that level just be so down to talk with a random fan. It's unheard of in classical music.
So let's fill in a couple of these blanks. So like high school, are you playing a lot of organ at that time, and then you like get a music scholarship going into USC? Is that how it goes?
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I played organ, and then got really lucky.
What's it like being the organ kid in that age? At high school, like. Is that kind of like a solo enterprise? Kind of.
Where did you go to high school?
Dude,
I was homeschooled the whole way.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Oh, yeah, obviously solo enterprise. Yeah. Then.
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't have much access to recordings and stuff. So what I ended up doing, organ was kind of. If you look at organ history, it's kind of always been the instrument that can play the parts of an orchestra. So from whatever, like say it's Bach and Baroque music, you got the orchestra as it looked like back then was very different, obviously. But like Bach's organ pieces can be transferred over to the orchestra of that period, and they have kind of similarities. And then as you go through the century,
are you saying Bucks? I'm sorry, I'm the dumb.
No, J.S. Bach, B-A-C-H.
Have you heard of him?
Bach.
Yeah, he's like.
Okay, I was hearing Bucks, and I was like, Bucks?
Bucks what? Bucks County? Dude, that's crazy. Yeah.
No, so the ODS dudes have turned me on to like Chopin and Bach and Beethoven. Casey actually introduced me to evil classical music through Beethoven. I can't remember what pieces you sent me, but there were some dark Beethoven stuff that we were listening to for a little bit.
YouTube links or something.
Buck, dude.
Buck created modern fucking.
You haven't heard of Buck's organ music, dude? Like, what are you doing?
It's called Uncle Bach.
Perfect.
Yeah, I was watching one of yours today that was like so sick. It was a Bach piece, and you were doing this like fast. I don't even know which one it was, but it was like this really fast run, and it was just like, oh my god, dude! And like I went to SF State for music, and like I was doing jazz drums, but like I would go see the concert hour and see all the people playing the crazy piano, like classical people, and there was some organists, but cool. You're at a different level. It was pretty because there were some good players, but the piano players were insane, and they would do all these like insane. Like Mozart pieces and Bach, and I would always look at the pamphlet and be like, oh yeah, this one's Beethoven because it's like my favorite, whatever.
Yeah.
But Bach like is before Beethoven. It's like it's the Baroque stuff. It's he like created so much of that, right, and stuff. And
exactly.
I can nerd out on that with you for hours. but because I didn't really study classical like super deep,
right.
But I just remember like loving those runs, like because this is like very accessible to our listeners because it's like, all the necrophagia shit, all that stuff you love.
Oh yeah,
remains, all the different. It's like all runs of certain things that like all like is done in classical, obviously in a crazy way. But I think it's cool that it's like, and I'll stop rambling in a second. But I think it's cool that it's not just like there's a difference between like soundtrack music. Which is like what we grow up on a lot, like as kids in movies, and there's like soundtracks, and then in the background, and they play a part in like something else. But when it's like a classical concert with like a shredding player, like your focus is on that. Like it's a different experience, and so with you, like I was like, it was like taking me back to that. Like, oh, I love that, just like this crazy runs and all the like all the different like polyphonic stuff you're doing with the hands and then of course the organ stuff at the feet. But I'll just stop rambling. But that's
no, you're so right.
I love.
I mean, that's what drew me to classical music is how cinematic it is. But like all good art is just made because people are bored. You got motherfuckers sitting around and they got a violin and they got a piano and they got to make something cool with it. And at that point, it's just Liszt is gonna sit, or whoever, Chopin's gonna sit down and play the piano. Yeah, and that's what you're going to be doing for the next 2 hours, is listening to this dude rip. And it's like creating worlds within that. Yeah, totally.
I think it would behoove us to like just take a second and have you walk us through kind of like a quick, just a little summary, if you don't mind, like classical or what, because Bach is even before classical, right? Or like just but not like a history lesson, but like as it relates to dark classical music and how that relates to death metal, like how would you sum up like
if Bach was before classical, what would you call him? What is
that's music history, but only with the good shit. No.
What does it say? Say it one more time.
Music history, but just with the good shit. Oh wait, no, it's like Baroque. Like
Baroque. That's what I was saying. Bach, Baroque, they're very similar. Bach, I was like, fucking.
Honestly, dude,
these guys.
I studied jazz and modern musicianship, like the theory and stuff. So for me, it was like the classic. I never took classical history classes. I took like, you know, electronic experimental Beatles, like that, all that kind of shit class. I purposely stayed away from the classical stuff in college. So
I get that.
So for me, like, because I tried it before and I failed out of it. So I was like, fuck class. Like I was not good at it. So I don't have a talent for that. So, but the point is, like, I think a lot of our listeners and us, all three of us, you know,
I'm learning right now, dude. Baroque is nothing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was just, you call it classical, but Baroque. I'm like, what?
Did I spell it right?
Wait,
it was totally period. And so just let's let Thomas talk and just.
It's like ska and reggae.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like rock steady. Yeah.
Well, so when you talk about classical music, I feel like now it kind of means like, oh, so these people are going to dress up, you know, in tuxes and play violins and pianos and shit. And so it, you know, if you look at Spotify, exactly. If you look at Spotify classical, you're going to get tons of different kinds of music in there. But if you look at like a music history textbook or something like that, they would break down, that kind of moniker classical music down into some different time periods. And confusingly, one of those time periods is called the classical era.
Right.
So there's, as you get down into the weeds, there's a little confusion with that term, but basically, notated music is like, we have early Greek, like ancient Greek stuff, that's written on tombstones and stuff, and we have, you know, obviously pictures of guys playing flutes and shit, and you know, banging on stuff, and as far as we know, they had a really developed like sense of music theory and melody and structure and text and all that, and it's pretty much impossible for us to decipher, people who are working on it. But in about 900 AD in France, the Notre Dame school of composers, for the next 200 to 300 years, which in music history, you talk about these vast swaths of time. It's like our country here isn't even 300 years old, but like, these guys had the idea to get more than one singer, because they had this massive cathedral, Notre Dame in Paris, and trying to fill up that space when you have 2,000 people in there trying to worship, and trying to get everyone there to hear the text. And so they started by roughly doing this technique called organum, which, you know, they'd get a bunch of guys to pick a chord that they thought sounded good, usually open fifths, kind of like power chords, and they would just sing the melody all together in fifths. And that kind of made it louder. And then it was all downhill from there of like, oh, look, you can combine notes, and you can, like, what if you had more than one melody at the same time and it made harmony? And that launched, you know, skipping a couple hundred years, that turned into like Renaissance choral music. And so roughly with music, you got like medieval, Renaissance, Baroque, which we're just talking about, starts in like about 1600, classical, which is kind of the end of the 18th century, romantic, which is roughly speaking the 19th century, and then 20th century, and then it kind of, no one knows what to call what we're in now, because you're all dealing with music historians, and they're like, oh, what are we doing?
Wow, dude.
You got modern music, which is like, you know, the modernism, which is kind of like the 1920s through like the 1960s, maybe 80s, and then in the United States, and then you got postmodernism, and then you got postmodernism, and you know, no one really knows.
So you're blowing the fuck out of my brain right now, because I as a so-called music lover, to run through that whole timeline, I would not know where to start, and I would just be a blubbering idiot. But listening to you say that not only is fascinating, makes me want to actually do some music history. I don't know. I'm blown away by the information that I don't have, guys. And
that's just music for you, though.
I'm getting imposter syndrome, dude. I don't know anything about fucking music after what you just said, dude.
You're just a chill, humble dude with eclectic music tastes, and like, you know
why it feels good to listen to it, but I can't explain why. And just to know that it goes back that far. And I have a question for you though. So you said shit's on tablets. Like, how is that translated to where somebody could put it on a music sheet and put it in front of me right now?
Basically, like, you know, you look at like a piece of sheet music. It's basic. I tell this to like little kids. It's basically like a graph, right? It's like, and looking at music from like the Notre Dame school and really early medieval stuff, you can totally see it as a graph. Like you got basically like pitch over time. But the Greek stuff on tablets, we have no idea what the fuck they were trying to say. Like,
I know. So how do you translate it to has anybody tried to translate it and actually play some of that? Or
there's tons of recordings out there, and they're fascinating. There's like recordings of Byzantine chants, and I know absolutely nothing about that notation system, but yeah, there's albums of ancient Greek music with like 5 different versions of the song, and one of them's
all it is just this translation off of tablets. Like, do we really know?
We have no idea.
I mean, I listened to a podcast one time about a guy. Here's a poem that's been translated, and it was all rhyming in English. Come on, dude.
Yeah,
it was rhyming in English. How can you translate this from ancient texts or whatever?
I mean,
and it'd be
even the Bible is like no one can agree on
manipulated.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And I'm not denouncing, all this. I'm just saying it is up to interpretation, because
there's a bit of indeterminacy with this kind of stuff. But ask any person who works on subtitles for movies, and they often have to figure out how to make like American songs rhyme or at least work as songs and others. And I had my mom one time, we were watching a movie, and like she was reading the song in Swedish and then explaining it to me, and it was like, yeah, it's kind of funky. Like they made it rhyme in Swedish, even though it's like it rhymes in English. It like if you directly translated it wouldn't rhyme, but they like figured out how to make it. Like language, actually, you can do a lot with language. There's a lot of fuzziness around it, and I'm sure there's a lot of fuzziness around music notation as well.
Oh, for
kind of make it work.
But it is kind of also like a game of telephone that if you let it get out of hand down the road, the translations will be.
Well, that for me is like a really fascinating part of classical music that feels really antiquated and out of date, but it's the fact that not like we don't know how Mozart played his shit or how Beethoven played his shit. It's like you're left with this basically a cooking recipe of a piece of sheet music.
Right.
And so even in like we're talking about tablets, and like we're talking about what are these, or what part of these hieroglyphs are notes and what parts are rhythms. But even with Beethoven, where we can read every note and rhythm that he wrote down, but it like there are infinite amounts of like schools of interpretation and schools of thoughts of like when Beethoven wrote, piano pedal markings of when to lift the damper pedal, did he mean this? Or like when Beethoven wrote a diminuendo or a crescendo, and like when he wrote crescendo versus writing just the lines or just the hairpin looking thing, like did that mean something different? Or like Beethoven has crescendo on a held piano chord, and how do you do that? You can't. But like, what does he mean? Is like part of the tone's different, and there's like infinite schools of thought on how to do that, and that's just with one composer. So like deciphering like a dead person's thoughts.
That's the craziest shit, dude. Like there's no, I don't know if
recording, dude.
Anthony knows this, but there's no recordings.
If you ever want to feel useful, Anthony, you help fix my car, and these guys are just wasting their time on deciphering.
I know. Do I sound like a caveman asking about like how is fire made?
No, I mean honestly, I feel like it's the most basic questions are the most interesting ones because there's no single answer. You know, it's like I don't know.
Too,
yeah. No, man, we got to assume like our listeners, like if you know about this stuff, then awesome for you. But all of us are just, dude, information should be like dumbed down to like anyone can understand it, and then you go complex from there. Like, there's nothing wrong with like making something really simple. Like we want to know, dude. We don't know. Like we work. Anthony works on it.
Like, go back to the free diver metaphor. Okay, so my whole life, I'm only diving in the waters of things that I've been exposed to since I've been alive, and there's been a couple of people who say dive past that bubble, and I have, and I've come across Chopin, I've come across Bach, but it was just something that I was just like quickly diving into and grabbed a relic or two and brought it back home, and this is now what I know of Chopin, Bach, and I keep saying these three guys because it's really just these couple of seashells that I took from this deeper area, and I enjoy these seashells so much, but to still stay within the comfort bubble of when I've actually existed. You know, I go back to early 1930s jazz and take a couple of relics and go back, it's just but to understand or wrap my head around the fact that music has been being built on as a structure or structures since we could be smart enough to organize these sounds that we're finding and find making these auditory sculptures and for them not to be recorded, but they're still somehow being brought into the current, into my little area, my bubble, and it's just totally telling me like, dude, dive a little deeper than your bubble, dude. Get back into the deep waters and find the cool shit that got us here. It literally is archaeology of audio.
It literally, I mean, to be fair, Anthony, like the skill at the skill set that it requires to prepare like a severed set is it's exactly as mind blowing
all those guys
as any of these classical guys. So like it's a testament to how deep music goes and just people go in general. It's really cool.
Yeah, dude.
Hell yeah. Well, okay, so I love this conversation already. I want to like dig deeper into this stuff. Like I mean, I have so many questions for you about like a lot of things, but like I'm curious about like how you like feel about like different like synthesizer stuff or 70s synth stuff and like Wendy Carlos, right? And like all that kind of stuff and everything. But I think before we get into all that, like just summing up, like I think it's worthwhile to take a minute here. We have someone like you who's so like good at this stuff and knowledged and experienced, and like just how this stuff has influenced death metal and like the classical stuff and the dark. I just want to keep digging in a little bit. Like what do you think are like the best, or like what's the darkest classical music? And this is something I've looked up so many times and checked out these great YouTube videos and sent them to Anthony, and he got excited. But like there's so much good shit. I want to hear your opinion about like what is some of the most like epic dark classical music that is virtuoso kind of stuff, like Sick, and of course Bach and Beethoven did a lot of that, but there's others, and of course Liszt. But like what to you is some of the most dark stuff that you can say, oh yeah, this easily influenced like Muhammad and Necrophagist and those guys and Christian and just all that like stuff that to us and I mean, I know this, obviously the Spawn guys and like what they're influenced by that as well. I mean, but all the different bands that you can hear that element, and even into black metal shit too, whatever. Yeah. Let's stop talking. Just
no,
tell
totally.
me I want to hear your brain, like just the dark classical, more about that.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard to pick like the darkest classical because there's so many centuries worth, and I feel like every kind of era of classical music, and then within that every city in Germany in the 1600s had some organist that was doing something insane in their own right. And so like going over, like looking at that music, like early Baroque music, like Michelangelo Rossi is this Italian Baroque keyboard guy, and he's got his Toccata number 7. It's piece in D minor. It gets super chromatic at the end, and there's like, it gets really gnarly in the harmony. Like music from that era, especially because the way that they tuned their keyboard instruments wasn't how we tune them now. They had
so explain that, because I know, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. Well, it started with Pythagoras, right? Where like you divide you divide a string into, you keep dividing it into 2, and you start getting the overtones.
Yeah.
And you divide it into different, divide it into 2, into 3, and 4, and 5, and you slowly end up at a collection of pitches. But you have a problem where if you want 12 notes, the way we've ended up with, the tuning is going to be just a tiny bit off.
From the octaves.
Yeah, and so you can decide to tune your keyboard instrument for the fifths to be perfect, which I might be wrong, but I think is what the Pythagorean tuning is. Or you can choose, certain keys to be more favorable for certain pieces and all that.
Yeah.
And so by the 1700s, when these guys are writing organ music, they're writing it for different tuning systems, and that ends up making chords that on our modern day organs sound gnarly. Don't get me wrong, like certain chords are just cool, but it just makes it so much heavier and so much darker to have that extra intonation. So gnarly. But what really got me like hung up on classical music was a kind of like the early 20th century stuff, where you get like Scriabin. I'm playing he's this like Russian composer from the end of the 19th century. And he has a piece for piano that I actually arranged it for organ because it's just that cool. But it's called The Black Mass. So literally it's Black Sabbath. Like it's just the same shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, he had kind of.
I think I watched that video that you had of that.
Oh, that piece is so cool. It's really gnarly. Like really, it's interesting with classical music in that period because they wanted to make dark, epic stuff, but they didn't have line arrays and double kicks and amps and so what fascinates me about classical music is that everything they accomplish with only pitch and rhythm.
Right.
And then as the years progressed, as the orchestras got bigger and bigger, timbre and sound kind of started playing a real part in that. But I'd say if you want like some really dark cool stuff, I feel like music by, I'd say, okay, the Max Reger Piano Concerto. Max Reger is this German composer. Again, early 20th century. If I write in this chat here, Max Reger. Can only you guys see this, or can they see this?
Oh, if you write, sorry.
Comments.
Yeah,
I can take that over to comments.
Duh.
But if he just continues in comments, it'll be
okay. Yeah, gotcha.
He's a great guy to check out. I'd say probably Mahler, Mahler. He's an Austrian composer from the early 20th century. He has these like hour-and-a-half long symphonies, and his whole deal was, I'm gonna write a symphony, and it's gonna contain the world in it. So he has like little folk songs from the mountain in one part with some mountain bells, and then he has this crazy storm section that's insane, and then he has like this 30-minute bit at the end where he combines all the themes that he had in his whole symphony. One of them is called The Tragic, and so it's got hammer blows at the end, and it's epic. I really love that music because it really takes you on a journey, and it really
Right.
I think the way that a lot of classical music evolved towards the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century is called developing variation. It's a really specific term, and all it means is like never repeat something twice. If you repeat like a musical idea, like say you had a melody you liked at the beginning of your symphony and halfway through you want to repeat it, do it a little different, spice it up some way, and have a different instrument play it. Yeah, exactly. Put it in a different key, put some different chords under it, like maybe chop it up and reorder the parts of it or something.
I've mentioned it a few times, but the soundtrack of the movie The Fountain is
I've not
Clint, I forget his last name. It starts with an M, but he worked with the Kronos Quartet, and listen to that soundtrack. There is a core theme, a melody that does come back as you're watching the film. It also works its way back in, but you notice that it's never the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that totally, there you go. Perfect. Clint Mansell. And
hell yeah.
I loved that. That's probably the reason why I always cite it as one of my all-time favorite soundtracks. Because I was the type of guy who if I fell in love with the movie, including its soundtrack, I wanted to have the album.
Hell yeah.
And I would listen to that, in the car or whatever, and go through it just like I was watching them. It's not presented like you're watching the movie, but just listening to the progression of that record all the way through, it takes you through all the levels that you would experience it through the movie. Wow. And yes, there's this building aspect, or even scaling it back for strip it down and just use that. But no matter what, it was
never the same. Always like that's
I have a controversial opinion. Just a thought, like, about, I think like it's kind of weird how like soundtracks get lumped in, they get like pigeonholed into being a soundtrack as opposed to just a composition. But then at the same time, it makes it really cool that they're a soundtrack, and it gives it attention and like is a good thing. So it's like this like double negative.
When you said composition, did you mean compilation?
No, I mean a composition.
Oh.
Like if so for example, Batman, Danny Elfman, and I mean, not to mention Prince, I mean, a whole different thing. But like say the classical like of the first Batman. Well, that's Prince, but like say like Batman, like they just did that thing in San Diego like a few months back, and I wish I had gone, but I'm sure it was touring around in LA too. But it was like, you know what I'm talking about, like this. I don't know which symphony it was, but they did the first movie Batman soundtrack, but they perform it live, but then they also have the movie like projecting above them.
That's super cool.
Again, fucking super sick. But to me, it's also like I feel like a lot of things now are like a soundtrack, like, and all that work. What if that was just like back in the day? It was just like this is just a composition of. I mean, it still happens today too. People write music in classical settings like that, but it's just kind of interesting how like a soundtrack becomes like for me. I almost feel a little funny like just putting on a soundtrack, like driving around, because it's like it's the movie. It's not just like I'm listening to like I don't know.
Yeah.
It just creates.
I get what you're saying. For me, it's not that weird just putting on a soundtrack, because you're talking with me who's like a super nerd of like classical instrumental music. But the most popular music for hundreds of years before jazz came along was opera. And and it's not that weird. I mean, maybe it is weird to listen to opera, but like it's not that weird to just put on opera and not be watching it. And and
it's a good point.
I feel like for hundreds of years, we've had various kind of templates that the people of that period can understand, so that you can fit kind of the abstract musical thought that you're trying to get across into this kind of structure, this kind of template, this kind of argument in a way for people who aren't in your head to understand. So for a while it was a symphony, and if you'd go hear, you know, any of these guys, Beethoven, especially Beethoven onwards, you know, you'd go hear a symphony by somebody, you'd know what to expect. There'd be 4 movements. The first movement would be kind of fast to moderate in tempo, and it'd be the longest movement, and it would, you know, I can go deep into this structure, but like it was like it'd be a sonata structure, which means that it comes out of the ancient Greek argument structure. So like there's theme A or character A if you want, and then theme or character B that's in a different key.
Wow.
And then you expose those two, you repeat that exposition, then you're at the 1/3 of the piece. Then you got your development section where like your 2 characters kind of duel it out, and then you got your recap where you get the 2 characters again, but the second one that was in a different key is now in the same key, and because you've kind of resolved that argument. And then you got like a minuet or some kind of like dance from back then, and then you got a slow movement, and then you got a finale that's a little shorter, that like is faster, that wraps it up. And that's the structure you're going into expecting. And now in the same way that you turn on the radio now and you can be like, that's the chorus, you know, or that's obviously the intro of the song, or like you go to see a movie, and depending on how it's shot, you're like, you know, you walk into a movie theater not knowing what you're seeing, you're like, oh, this is a horror film, you know, or like, oh, I bet those 2 will end up together. You know, it's the same cues that have always been in music this whole time.
Wow.
And that was awesome. That was the best rebuttal of my comment I've ever heard. I'm a believer now. I'm like, oh yeah, you just completely fooled me, and I fucking love it.
I thought that was reinforcing your point. It's kind of the same idea. Just
yeah, but no, but he was saying it's not weird.
Yeah, like, okay, I get
that. Yeah, like that.
I can start talking about shit. You guys,
no, dude, no, please, dude, I'm.
Real quick though, I just was like, dude, I was like, you're saying that, I was like, well, it's like Queen. It's like Flash Gordon. Like, have you seen that 70s Flash Gordon?
I need to watch that
Queen soundtrack. And
there's something really you need to know. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's all I have to say. It's really good. It's great, but it's like it's a Queen doing the soundtrack to a movie in the 70s, and Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon. It's a movie that was, I mean, it was a whatever show or movie that was so old that even then it was a remake. I think goes back way. Yeah, Flash. Yeah, dude, it's fucking dope. It's a real, and Queen just murdered. I mean, Queen is such a fucking great band, but they just murdered that soundtrack. It's so good. It's like not lame. It's yeah. Anyway, so
I love when a band makes a soundtrack, like when 9 Inch Nails makes soundtracks. It's
so dude, Trent is. Oh yeah, dude.
Or like Daft Punk doing Tron. It's like, it's so sick.
Oh yeah. Daft Punk's cool. Yeah.
Pink Floyd were supposed. I mean, they did do soundtracks. They were supposed to do the soundtrack to Jodorowsky's Dune. That would have been pretty fucking crazy.
You gotta watch that.
Anybody done Dune 2? That'd be so sick.
Yeah.
Luke LeMay.
So, dude, Joseph's been down his David Lynch little path. I could tell.
Here we go.
I love. Yeah, I'm 100% Twin Peaks fanatic at this point. Just like any waking moment, I'm just thinking about it. So sorry.
No, dude, that's all good. You're one of 2 homies that I have that have gone fully down that rabbit hole.
We have to have a whole episode about that. But I have a point. I have a point that it's like I can imagine metal musicians rediscovering some of the darkness without necessarily having been exposed to the entire history of dark classical music. So I'm wondering how much of that is influence versus like being more like subconsciously influenced by the same emotions or the same. Yeah. So not actually hearing it and being like, I'm going to try to make it sound like that. Now there are like more clear cases. Like I know that Briesling from Spawn really like Shostakovich and stuff, but I don't know how common those cases are. I think I just want to put out the hypothesis that a lot of dudes might just rediscover, because music is something you don't have to have heard to do the same thing. It can be rediscovered, or so just an alternative.
Fascinated me with stuff like, well, getting into the brutal death metal and all that stuff is, I mean, honestly, I heard Scream Bloody Gore, and which blew my brains out the first time I heard it. And
before we go on to something, I just want to know how, because you were homeschooled and was it the guy in college, was it that just, I know you said he gave you a few things, but then did you find death on your own, and or was he just keep feeding stuff to you?
After that, he definitely fed me stuff. When on his end, it was more like Dillinger and stuff like that, which was
nice.
Like totally, blew my brains out. The whole death metal thing, that was me kind of just, late nights online, kind of trying to find what's heavier and the thing I love about classical music is the counterpoint, which is like, when you have several things going on at the same time, the polyphony, like you got melodies that also make harmony and that get you this kind of complexity. And I feel like, especially in college, I was just so so insecure about technique and about like really wanting to I was totally technique obsessed, and like, what's the next hardest piece of organ or piano music or whatever written? What's the next densest? What's the next notiest? What's the next most dissonant, most gnarly piece of music? So it was kind of the same journey with death metal, where it was like, here's Megadeth here, so I'm going to listen to all these Dave Mustaine interviews, and he's, simultaneously the smartest person I've ever encountered, and maybe the most brain dead person I've ever encountered. But brilliant. And then he says something about death metal. I was like, what's death metal? I've heard of it. What is it actually? And and then on freaking Wikipedia at 3 a.m, you're like, Death, Morbid Angel, and Obituary, and Deicide. Okay, well, I got a whole ton of albums to listen to, and like, how are Death and Morbid Angel the same genre? Like, I understand that there's similarities, obviously, but
you notice the distinctive quality.
Could you imagine two more different bands in a way? Like, and then for me, I think it was arriving at like the really nutty guitar playing of like Thorndahl and Meshuggah and his like side project, the Soul Niger Within stuff. I don't know if.
Dude.
Yeah, that stuff is so sick.
I love that. It's one song. If you,
it's just like they don't stop playing, and it's so sick. And then like discovering Trey Azagoth, or however you say his name, and like, I don't know.
I don't even know.
Listen to the Covenant album and ever be the same,
right?
And and it lands on God of Emptiness, and you're like, oh shit, there's like a real journey to this album that on first listening kind of all sounded the same. And so with a lot of classical music that I encountered when I was like 15, 16, a lot of that really modernist, kind of very dissonant 20th century classical music that kind of written before and after World War II, that's really, really, really gnarly. That kind of music takes a lot of listens to kind of get. So it was a lot of, I feel like my way of discovering music is just like, I know this is good. I don't understand it yet, so I just got to listen to it a bunch. And I feel like death metal invites people like that because there's a lot going on, especially some of the earlier stuff. It's like some of the Morbid Angel stuff or death stuff is not recorded super well. Sometimes it's like it takes a second to really understand what's happening, and when you do, it's really rewarding, and it's there's an incredible amount of depth to it.
So some of those like early death records and some of that stuff's like, it's not that complicated. So I'm sure you're like listening your first time, you can probably pick out like actually like the notes are kind of hard because it's not recorded that well, but it's like it's one guitar, one bass track to kind of figure out.
Right.
So so I'm sure it's not like, especially with the early death and that stuff, it's not like the complexity that's blowing your mind. It's something else. What is it that you're like that's blowing your mind that you haven't heard before in classical? Or maybe it is like the actual like palette of notes that he's choosing or something. I don't know, but
I feel like it's true that with death, it's pretty much it's pretty much the same few modes, the same few scales over and over again, and it's really simple. And I feel like, you know, I stumbled on a lot of stuff that sounded like it that didn't really grab me in the same way. I feel like there's something in classical music, since because there's so many, you know, there's centuries of music, and you can't all know all of it all at the same time. And when you go into classical music, you realize there's people that specialize in Italian music from 1540 to about 1590, you know, like, so like I was used to hearing stuff and kind of differentiating between the talent and the genius of someone doing it, and some maybe a musical language that I like or don't like. So listening to Chuck, it's like, and having listened to so much classical music and analyzed a lot of music, it's like there is just that element of genius and of like, there's just, he's just a real artist.
Yeah.
And even if he's using means that are simpler than other bands or other genres, it's just incredibly beautiful.
Obviously he got more complicated pretty soon. It didn't take long.
Definitely.
So that's kind of a cherry picked case, but
it'd be interesting to hear a organ version of Voice of the Soul off of.
Oh, I've been messing around with that. I haven't like.
I used to wake up to that song for 2 years in a row, dude. I had my iHome with my iPod on it, not iPad, iPod, and it was set to Voice of the Soul, dude. And I would, it was such a welcoming part of my day, dude, to hear Voice of the Soul as you wake up.
That song,
and the iHome was so ahead of its time back then that it would ease into it. It wouldn't just like hit you with the fucking thing that our iPhones do. You get shepherded into Voice of the Soul.
Oh, that's amazing.
Come in here and enjoy the Voice of the Soul.
So speaking of the Voice of the Soul, guess who might not be making it tonight?
No, the voice of
the Joel.
I think we need to the voice of the Joel. I think we need to have a little inspiration moment.
I'll play a Requiem.
all of us should make a quick video about how we're disappointed that Joel isn't here.
God, no.
Well, I mean, it's the first day of this. It's the first game of the NFL.
Are we in extra time?
Right?
What's going on?
We're all
fighting back. I got a note.
No, the game's over. They won. They won. Of course they won. Of course they won, dude.
I don't know.
But
if they lost, he might have gone.
The point is that Joel got a little too excited, and I think he's preoccupied with the excitement of the game.
He ate too many bananas, dude.
Yeah, and
he's on his way to Tijuana.
Dress up like Joel. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's all
good. What do you mean? I've never dressed up as anybody. I don't know what he's talking about. He's crazy. Yeah, I would never dress up as Joel. I don't know how
no. What are you talking? Shout out to Ian, by the way. Sick Drummer Magazine.
So
shout out to Ian, Sick Drummer Magazine. Casey was missing last week, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
I came at the end. Well, how many times do I gotta say this?
He missed this episode until the end. Until the end. He came back in, but
I was busy, man.
Yeah.
Whatever. I can't make every episode all the time. I'm not the main host like you are. And I appreciate the work you do, Anthony, and you never miss an episode. So congratulations. I love you.
Still, I got
look at this. They missed you last week. Big
all right. Back to the so real quick, I have a thought. Or a question. So in the classical world, like, you know, at least in college and seeing all that, I know that there's also the jazz department, and they're always kind of butting heads a little bit and all this kind of stuff, right? So, but not to get all deep into jazz, this is a classical night. Okay, we all got our Chardonnay out, but the point is that, like, when it comes to shred and virtuosity as a player, like, to you, I mean, obviously jazz, like, it's not a secret, improvisation is like their and being able to play over modes and this modal, that's different things, but all that exists in classical and has existed before. Charlie Parker, all those guys were super inspired by Bach, and they would play Bach pieces in Coltrane. All those guys are in Buck, yeah, but Buck Rogers, but all that was earlier, obviously. So it was like, okay, So like, I'm just curious how just, I don't want to get too deep into it, but just like your thoughts on like, because Bach was known as a great improviser too. And like, so like that element of the improvisational piece and playing over weird like modes and like chord changes to like are meant to sound like you got to use that altered dominant superlocrian shit, sure. Like all the like, you know, the altered
dominant superlocrian.
Well, it's just
dude, that sounds really like a fucking
dude. That's totally on the In and Out secret menu.
Just taking diminished and whole tone and just sandwiching it together. It's just weird.
Oh, dude, yeah, you totally make it understandable, dude.
No, but I'm just saying, it's just the weirdness, like, and they use it already.
It sounds super fucking cool, though, dude.
But let's just let him talk. So the point is, like, like just to really quick interject the jazz element into this conversation. What do you think about that? And that what I kind of brought up, and obviously those elements of improvisation, and then a little like modal weird, like more altered stuff that's like more like touched upon in jazz, like in a way that's weaved in, and it's used in classical, but like in a different way in jazz. And what do you think about that too?
Totally. Yeah. That's super cool. My dad listened to a lot of like kind of not free jazz, but a lot of like, you know, like Herbie Hancock and all kind of that kind of like more progressive stuff. So I kind of grew up listening to some of that a little bit, and I feel like, I mean, it's what I think about it. It's like some of the sickest shit ever done. Like those guys are. I also feel like if Keith Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, those guys are kind of the closest we have now to the classical composers that I do and work in, because like my whole shtick is like I went to music school and got scholarships and all this stuff that I'm really grateful for, but like music school is not a place you go to actually learn music, because it's so segregated and so divided into, like, it was a huge mess to try to, you know, because I want to make music and I want to play music, right? So to be a double major to like do composition and organ was a huge mess. And so then imagine like wanting to know something about jazz, even though I got to be friends with Patrice Rushen, who's like, she's the chair at USC for jazz, but she's like a kind of a celebrity in that world in her own right. And she's, you know, this incredible pianist and composer and all that. But like, I had to really seek out this person and those people in that department. And, you know, you don't talk to the jazz people.
They keep it separate. I know the same thing with me. You don't really.
Yeah. Why is it so? Like,
and like here we are
to learn, dude. It's a different.
Yeah, it's just what's up with music school culture? Yeah, it seems like anyone who's not part of it
so divided still, though. Like,
it makes no sense.
From a genre that I think takes from both of those places. So why can't they mix with each other?
It's like becoming a dentist versus a doctor or something. It's like
so maybe what it is okay.
And back in the 1300s, no matter what you did, you were a philosopher, an astronomer, a musician, or a jazzer. You were an alchemist. That's what you were, okay? Like, we should all go back to that.
What's strange about it is this. I think either side may see over time, if you were to incorporate that, it would work against their individual programs, and they would maybe have lower, you know.
Well,
I'm just thinking like, if you were to stray either way, it might just take you away from what you're supposed to be.
They may also not be able to take your tuition money for a whole 4 years if you learn too much.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
It's the school thing is totally political, dude. It's totally political. I'm trying to like think that art's still there, but I guess it's just this
is how it works. The further back you go, I'm not an expert, but just bear with me. The further back you go, it seems like it was just like kind of like in academia, like there was a classical training, and then eventually somewhere along the line, it was like, oh, let's add like jazz or whatever. Or no, before that, it was like classical guitar. It's like Andres Segovia was influential in getting classical guitar added, and they were like resistant about that, and they're like, okay, fine. And then it was like classical guitar worked too, and then whatever era it was, then they started trickling in jazz into schools. Into colleges, at least, you know, like, and that could be like a major. It was kind of like a secondary or a subsidiary department to the classical department, which is always like kind of the top. And then like you're like this and that, and then now it's like all the way up to getting recording arts degrees and stuff, or like Musicians Institute, or like modern musicianship and different degrees that, I mean, MI is like a great school. Like, and so all that, it just depends on like what your degree means in like society today. And like, what are you going to do with that, kind of thing. It's just, so like, but the further back you go, the more classical it was, I think.
Right.
And so like a jazz department in like state schools, for example, which is my experience. I can't really speak for anything else because I haven't really done much else, but it's like, and that it's like clearly just the classical or jazz. You got two choices, pick one, and then there might be like other like music education or like, like other kind of things and stuff. But for the most part, like, so,
you think about it though, it's the jazz is something different because there's composition, but there's that improvisation thing that you were talking about. So giving an environment where people can let loose and find how to navigate improvisational situations. And then you got classical, which is super organized and kind of
didn't used to be that way though. You would go to a piano recital by Liszt or Chopin, and half of it would be improvised.
Interesting. Okay, that's what I want to know.
And like, there's tons of stories of like,
tell me.
Like probably one of the sickest like stories is Bach showing up to Frederick the Great's palace, and like Frederick the Great wants to hear him plays his brand new invention, the pianoforte, because they had harpsichords that like the key has a plectrum that plucks the string and then
plucks the string. Yeah,
exactly. So if you play like really hard or really soft, it plays the same dynamic. And there's a ton of cool things you can do with it. It's like a really deep musical instrument. It's not like the piano replaced it because it was better, but like the pianos came along and you could play loud or soft and get different colors out of it, because of the hammer system. And so that blew people's minds. And so kind of like synthesizers did 40 years ago. So, and now you hear them everywhere. So, for a long time, pianos were the shit. and Bach kind of died right at the beginning of that, but he did play some of those early pianos. And so he's at Frederick the Great's, palace. And he doesn't ask Bach, like, play your latest composition. He's like, bro, improvise.
Sick.
And he gives him a theme. Now we're doing the Frederick the Great Bach story. All right, we're in this. But he gives him a theme. He's like, here's the impossible theme, because Bach's son, CPE, had Carl Philipp Emanuel, worked for Frederick the Great as like the court composer, which was like the gig then, like tenure track. And
damn,
he was like, give your dad they knew Papa Bach was like the shit, and like he could improvise anything. You could give him anything and he would just make this beautiful piece out of it, right? And so he's like, Frederick the Great told CPE, like, give your dad an impossible theme that he can't improvise on, that he can't harmonize. That's a lot of music from back then dealt with imitation, right? So you hear something once in like the flute, and then the flute does something different, but while that happens, the violin plays the same shit down a step or something like that, and how those interplay and how those melodies go together was like craft back then. It's like production technique now. And so he's like, give him a theme that he can't put an imitation that won't work like that. And of course, the story is Bach sees the theme that his son, who knew his dad, like worked out, so he couldn't fucking do anything with it. And of course he does. And so he's like, improvise a fugue, which was like kind of a structure that they would use a lot back then. Like we were just talking about, you were to hear a symphony, you would know what to expect at what times. A fugue's a little bit that way. One of those structures. Improvise a fugue in 3 voices on the keyboard, and he's like, sure, why not? And improvise 1 in 6, and then that's when Bach goes, I'm sorry, I've just been traveling for 2 weeks, I haven't slept, I can't do it right now. And so Bach goes home, and then that's kind of the interesting link between improvisation and written out music and classical music that we don't know much about. We just have these testimonies, these like written out descriptions of what happened. We'll never have a recording of Bach improvising. If we did, it would be just like hearing Keith Jarrett or people like that improvise. But Bach then sent him an hour-long piece called The Musical Offering, which is with this just gloriously sarcastic note at the beginning saying, your theme was so brilliant and so beautifully crafted that I wasn't able to get the genius out of it in that moment. And so it consumed me in guilt and blah, blah, blah. You know how they would talk back then. And so he sends Frederick the Great this kind of fuck you of like, here's your theme and all the possible imitations that you forgot to make impossible. Basically, it's this crazy. But like,
wow,
moments like that are the rare, the few and far in between times that we're reminded that these guys were improvisers first. So there was much more. And the whole idea of having someone who would show up and play the piano for people and play other people's music is new. It's less than 200 years old, that idea, which for me, classical music is new. I'm hearing myself, but you would go hear any of these guys. Like there's this guy called Girolamo Frescobaldi, who's like this Italian early Baroque guy. He's like kind of the late 1500s to the early 1600s. And he would sell out a St. Peter's in Rome 3 times in a row. So that's, 3 times like 15 to 20,000 people in one afternoon. Like he has to play the same set 3 times that day because like 60,000 people want to hear it. Which, I mean, that's like a Woodstock level crowd.
That's more than
playing organ.
Metallica. Metallica just does it one night.
Exactly.
One set.
What is he playing? As far as we know, there's no program. There's no, yes, he will now play, in classical music, you're supposed to play a bunch of stuff from different eras and stuff. Totally not like that. And academia has kind of, steamrolled it into that. So I can't wait for the time when you go to an academic recital and they announce, we are going to play now a rendition on the pianoforte of Looks That Kill by Motley Crue, and everyone goes, yes. And they're all dressed with these fake long, like hair metals.
Their fans, even them.
And they have a historically accurate way of chugging the Jack Daniels. Like Tom.
That's wild, dude.
I'm so drawn to metal, and now I'm kind of like, I'm really into dubstep and electronic music, and I have synthesizers back here that I'm getting into because it just feels like classical music. I love the music, but just how ludicrous this whole thing is that we go, the elitism and the strange. I saw the comments, the Novation base station, this thing. Yeah, we got some nerds here.
Shout out Ricky.
Shout out Ricky.
Hell yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what drew me into death metal, because it was like this thing that's equally complex, that's got a lot going on, and that I feel like there's skills that I can use from classical training to learn how to play like death metal songs or something like that on the keys, and I kind of got into synthesizers because I was like, well, I really want to focus on keys, but like, what can keys do in brutal death metal? So Then I went on a journey in this past year of, you look up metal synth and you get these like French synthwave artists that write these really heavy, dark electronic things. And then there's dubstep. And like tomorrow I'm seeing Sullivan King. And I'm like, this guy rips on guitar and he has sort of these deathcore-y kind of things with dubstep. And it's kind of like, oh shit, I grew up writing all this stuff by hand and thinking that was the shit. And
what is it about death metal that became this like centerpiece for more branches to grow off the tree of metal, dude? We have a heavy branch on the metal tree, dude. Death metal has got a very abundant heavy branch that has got a massive amount of delicious fruit. What is that?
I feel like it's specific enough.
Anthony's killing it with the metaphors tonight. I just
hell yeah.
You're on point.
You guys need to have a highlight reel of the Anthony metaphors, and that's more.
But it is true. It is very true. If you think of it as a family tree.
I think of extreme metal as death metal plus a couple other genres that get to be there because they're friends or whatever. So yeah.
And to some extent, like, genre is a retrospective kind of,
that's true too,
thing that's put on it. So
yeah, black metal was a reaction to death metal. It's like
and there's Chuck being like, yeah man, I can't do the Chuck I don't know what this death metal thing is. They're just doing metal, man.
That thing,
and it's God. I love those Chuck interviews were like a really early way of understanding. Like, here's a really sophisticated musician who's totally unpretentious, and it's so refreshing to just listen to this genius just talking this just with the fucking cats, and it's like God.
Yeah. Wait, so like if you're a great guitar player, I mean, just the elephant in the living room, just real fast. You're a great guitar player, great keyboard player. What about the guitar, dude? Just insane with that fucking Roland, just like you one of those guys. Or have you seen those crazy like guitar things like from the 80s, like that Alan Holdsworth played? What's that one called?
Like
the Syntax.
Yeah.
That's like a legit one.
Around with it, but you know what my problem with that is that the whole thing that I love about the keyboard is that you can play a ton of shit at the same time. And like with the guitar, it's like, why would I want my left hand to only work on pitch bends and certain tonal things? It's like I've messed around with it, and I'm like, damn, I wish I could look cool while I played instead of just sitting there at some monster thing with knobs. But I just haven't gotten into it. I don't know. I've tried carrying this around, but yeah.
Nice.
But I guess the answer to that is Colin Marston's war guitar. That's the The
war guitar blew my mind the first time I ever came across it, dude. I was like, I want one of those just for an art piece. I'll never figure out how to play it, but have that on your wall, that sounds pretty fucking cool, dude.
When you guys had him on and he was just like, yeah, so war guitar, real easy, just like a normal guitar, twice backwards and upside down. So see, you got to hear fourths and fifths, and so that means you can play a scale this way or that way, and then also you can do this. Just what?
But the Chapman stick is something that is really cool too, and that is that based on that. I don't know what came first, the Chapman or the war
Chapman
guitar.
The war guitar sounds cooler, so I'm gonna say
I guess a war guitar is more of a
just
guitar
like
and bass put together, and
it's like one
Chapman.
guy that he just decided to make his own instrument kind of.
The real thing that came first is a theorbo, because these Baroque guys were like, guitars and lutes are too small. I need like look up these things. They got like
dude,
they're all
give me a picture of a theorbo, somebody right now.
They got to be like 15 feet long with like strings as long as the lowest notes on the piano, and like certain open strings that were totally unfretted, so they were like your root strings, sort of like a bagpipe, but you got a bunch of them, and then you got different necks. It's like Jimmy Page is just 400 years late.
Have you ever heard of the band Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum?
No, but I'm writing this down. Got my
write it down.
Oh yeah,
there's a guy in that band. A lot of the percussion, half of the band is percussion. There's a regular drummer, a guy who does found items, just slams on shit that's found, like and then there's another guy who beats this thing with a hammer that is about 10 feet long, and it seems to me just a big giant bass.
Nice.
It's a big giant bass that he beats with a hammer, and a Stratosphere. Shout out! Oh, I didn't even. I forgot when I brought it up. I wasn't remembering that I'm wearing the shirt, but
hell yeah,
they played with Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum at Great American Music Hall, and amazing night. But I'm not going into that night now. I know I'm already in the woods. But
the woods,
or the weeds. Excuse me.
Woods.
Why did I say
I like the woods? No, woods is sick.
I'm going along with woods. That's what I'm saying.
In the woods. That's beyond the weeds, dude. That's in the woods. You're like,
when you
sorry, I was talking about Gorguts, guys. I was all in the woods.
I'm in the woods, man. Walking into trees.
When you
shit.
said 15 feet long, that's exactly what snapped into my memory of just something that I experienced of a guy playing a stringed instrument that's gigantic, and he had to play it with a hammer. What did they play? A 15-foot long, whatever. What'd you call it? What is it?
They're the theorbo. They just literally they wanted lower and lower notes. It's all the same with the different. That's what I love about discovering synths, like synthesizers, is it feels like we've done this before many times. Because if you look at harpsichords, they kept getting lower and lower and bigger and fatter. And with pianos, the same deal. They were, the pianos Beethoven and Chopin played were made out of wood, and with a wooden sounding board and a wooden God, I keep forgetting the word now, but basically the contraption that holds the strings in place, that holds that pulls against all those tons of tension, is wooden. And in modern pianos, it's metal, just because they wanted lower, bigger strings and more strings per note, bigger sound. It's just kind of, we're just repeating history, and it's great because that's what it's been about this whole time. And that's what I feel about. I feel like I'm lucky to be alive at the time that death metal's a thing, because it feels like when you study music history and you find like these Baroque organists in Lübeck, Germany in like the 1690s that were doing this kind of really hardcore shit. Like this guy Buxtehude, who like Bach walked like 300 miles for 2 weeks. He was just walking, and staying, out the back of his buddies' sheds and stuff just to go hear this guy. He lost his job at his church.
Buxtehude?
Yeah, B-U-X.
Dude, that sounds like a sick band name, Buxtehude.
Buxtehude. That'd be sick. And like it's
Buxtehude.
Exactly.
Dude.
God, where was I going with this? I'm not even drunk, guys.
But Bach's walking to go
on his way to.
It's hard to explain things to a bunch of drunk guys that interrupt each other. Like
Bach
I just
made his way out to go experience that dude.
Yeah, lost his job, came back, enlightened, totally worth it.
Wow,
literally. So he made it and he experienced it, and
yeah. And again, that guy was just improvising. You went to hear Buxtehude, he would just rip for like 20 minutes straight and be like, all right, I guess I'm done. It wasn't this formal thing that you hear now with classical music. And it was, again, it's all just him having 50 years worth of craft built up, that he can take a theme and
he traveled to the top of the mountain, dude, and found the Shaolin monk and
that was Bach also. It's interesting to look at these guys having the same journey that you guys describe on the pod, with these different legends in metal, where it's like you're just constantly looking for the heavier stuff or the more complex stuff. It's like Mozart discovering Bach is like, oh shit, there's this guy that like wrote these pieces, and like, are there more Bach pieces? Like he went out of fashion, and so they found masterpieces that now we like enshrine in our libraries and stuff, literally wrapping fish at a market, where these manuscripts that were 100 years old.
It is wild, dude.
Those fish tasted good.
But archiving things seems to be the common thing. That's why we have so much history, is because there is enough of individuals that want to do their part to preserve some of that stuff, and we now in the 2000s, 2024, we're experiencing those. I would still say interpretations. You got to just call them interpretations, but at least they're some of them are preserved enough to where we're getting somewhat accurate with.
Right.
I mean, the way that music's written hasn't changed in how many years?
Ooh. Oh, less than one. It's changing all the time. But no,
I get what you're saying though.
No, like sheet music. Is there things that are being changed to sheet music currently? Like how you write sheet.
No,
music.
to answer, I mean no, but like you still, like middle C is always going to look like middle C. Is going to be on 5 lines. That's not going to change. But like,
I'm a dummy, but I want to know the way you guys read sheet music.
Yeah, totally.
How long do we go back in the past before that's different?
In the 1600s, it's pretty much as it is, and before that, it's the same but a little harder to read. And it's kind of like the further back you go in English, it's like it gets harder and harder to read. And so like Chaucer is kind of the first thing you can kind of read in English without translation. And it's roughly around the same time.
Around 400 years, basically. We've had this way of reading
system,
sheet music.
Yeah, and like there's a bunch of nerdy stuff about guitar too, and like stringed instruments using tabs for like hundreds of years, or using numbering systems.
You want to see something insane? There's lute tab, and which was what guitar tab came from. Check out. Can you guys put up a picture of Baroque organ tablature? Because you would think it would be like, it would look like guitar tab. It looks like some cartoonist went haywire. Like they electrocuted his hand while he was drawing the cartoon is what it looks like.
Okay. I'm getting ready to present.
I gotta see it, dude.
While I present this, getting ready, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but are you still actively seeking collaborators for metal and other styles of music? I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to
thank you
to make that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I just love death metal, and I love the Cali death scene and all that. So if you guys hear stuff that needs some kind of synths or pianos or organs or something,
I have this feeling he could fit in Dreamer in some way. I don't know why.
I mean, that'd be. I was gonna say that'd be the dream, but like,
why? I just feel like you would like be really good in Dreamer. I don't know why.
We should talk, but yeah, I have. Yeah. There's a section of a song on the first album that I've always heard like a ripping keyboard solo over. But then Beatty ended up writing and performing like a really cool synth part on it, so it's already kind of done. But anyways,
is there even like I have no
is this a good example? It's the first one.
Here, let me send you a link.
It doesn't look too crazy.
No, that's lute tab, organ tab,
dude.
Like that's easy.
Anthony can do that.
Yeah, that's
it looks like cuneiform, like Sumerian text to me, dude.
Here,
I found Bach's own tablature. I guess.
Here you go.
I don't know.
It's beautiful. It literally is. Looks like a piece of art that you would want to frame.
Look at the.
Oh, this is literally what I had ready to.
Here you go.
Oh, here it goes again. Wrong button.
Anthony, prepare a beautiful metaphor for this piece of organ tablature.
I don't know. I'm going to take a sip of beer before I do that.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Whoa.
Okay. It looks like my notes in third grade. No, I'm just
That's a good metaphor if we got it. Yeah.
Damn.
Wow, dude.
So I got some buddies in Amsterdam. My friend Michael Bennett, who's this insane composer and organist, and he knows how to read. You could put that in front of him, and he would just sight read it.
That's sick.
That's insane.
It does look like a South Asian language with the lines above the letters.
I was gonna say it's more complex than looking at most. It definitely.
The computer in the professor's brain is just analyzing. It's like ask AI to decipher ancient Egyptian. It just
it's beautiful. Again, it's beautiful. I think that's
actually pierced from within, dude. Look,
that was by hand, dude, and there's so much complexity and so much information just in this. It's
the reason they came up with organ tab is to save ink, because a lot of these guys were not noble families and stuff, so they would get their parchment paper and their ink, and that'd be what they had for that month or that year or whatever.
But what really blows my mind is that somebody was looking at that and translating it into this instrument that you play, which, by the way, again, I have lots of questions. So the feet it's the bass. Is it the bass is your feet and your hands is the lead if you want to translate?
Generally, that's what happens. What happened with the pedal board is really interesting, because when the organ when they first designed it, it had like the oldest organ we have is from the 1400s. That's completely intact. It's in Switzerland, and it's just one little keyboard. And and so the whole reason that the organ existed is that they decided that if you had pipes that would play certain overtones that were in the sound already, if you like accented those overtones, you could project the sound into a large space like a Gothic cathedral. And so the organ has always been a an instrument designed to accompany choirs and singers, for better or for worse, but that's kind of what it was made to do. And so when they started writing more intricate instrumental music, like in the 15 and 1600s, keyboard players wanted to play that stuff. And by the time you get to the 1700s, the orchestra has an entire bass section of its own. And this is back to like the harpsichord discussion. We always want to make things bigger, badder, meaner. The Baroque orchestra has a whole bass section with a harpsichord with a whole bunch of things doubling the bass line, so it shakes the earth as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so that sound was translated by having a pedal board have its own division of pipes that are bigger, badder, meaner, lower, and also because in Western classical music theory, the bass note is what tells you what inversion your chord is. Kind of everything you need to know in the harmony you can kind of tell from the bass and a couple intervals above it. To make a short story longer, the bass line in Baroque music is what you're really listening for in a big reverberant church, and having that accented in the pedal division is what made it possible to really replicate the instrumental music of the time and kind of move the organ beyond just an instrument to accompany the choir, but make it into its own one-man orchestra, really. And so
imagine being the guy who's just playing the keys, and then they're like, yeah, we had to cut a few guys.
Yeah.
You're going to now start using your feet. And you're like, fuck, dude. Now I gotta...
do I get a pay bump? And they're like, we'll look into that, but let's see how we get those feet.
Yeah. And so by the time you get to Bach, there's these insane letters, or like there's these insane letters of guys, or even Mozart being like, he can play with his feet just as fast as you can play with his hands. And I mean, and this is no news to you guys that are around blast beats all the time, but like, if you're
Not
around
me.
you're around anything,
you
and
should have put it on yourself, Mr. Casey.
if you here's the abnormally small looking painting. It's actually large.
Very larger than we think.
But like, yeah, it's such a cool history with I'm just obsessed with, obviously, with the organ and how you can kind of trace, because it's so old, and because the modern keyboard as we know it was invented 2,000 years ago for the prototype of the organ. It's just been around for all these different parts of music history. So you have total freedom in a way to play anything you want from all those different centuries.
So when we see you sitting down and you're shredding all the limbs, where are you at?
I'm at this. I have this setup at home here, which is this really strange thing.
No, I just watched you recently, like tapping your ass off. Another thing too, the everybody's talking about the doubles and all that shit. I'm like, this dude's ankles have to be the biggest ankles out of...
Dude, I can't kick soccer balls legally because they'll end up on the moon. No, but yeah, it's interesting because I can't tap for shit, but like. But it is kind of the same technique of like I practice doing trills with my toes and my heels. And so a big part of what I tried to do, mostly out of insecurity and then out of being interested in it, was like the last 10 years or so, my biggest thing with organ is kind of pushing the technique to places where it hasn't been before. And because when you look at, now I'm talking really, when you look at the niche of classical music, within that niche, keyboard classical music, and within that niche, the niche of organ music, organists have been tied to church for the longest time. And the problem with that is that in the 19th century, the piano with Liszt and Chopin and all these guys had this incredible amount of talent applied to it that made it such that piano technique, they wrote the most technically advanced music, as in like you're playing 6 voices and they're all super fast, and you got different things that go up and down the keyboard at different intervals that are like really hard to do and all that. And the organ, kind of, which had been the leading keyboard instrument for hundreds of years, kind of fell behind in like the technical proficiency of the people that played it. And so me and like a bunch of other people are kind of like trying to push the limits of organ. And so specifically with the pedals, like playing those Chopin pieces that are like exercises for the left hand in the pedals is kind of like a way to do that.
Well, you definitely brought my attention to the instrument.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
You know, growing up as a Catholic until 5th grade, and I denounced it. I said, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. But until then, I heard lots of organ music in a church, and that was actually the thing that I was most stoked for at church, was to listen to the person playing the music. I was just waiting for that organ to start being played, and I was like, all right, I could be down with this melody, you know.
It can be cool.
There's no doubt church is built for acoustics,
right?
And there's even bands that have recorded in churches, and it sounds pretty fucking rad, you know.
I mean, if anyone listening to this wants to go play God of Emptiness in a giant reverberant church with me, then
I would want to witness that, because that would be such a unique experience, because that is a very great place to hear sound. And
I mean, talk about bass. I mean, we have 32-foot organ pipes that for the last 400 years of shaken stone walls. Like it's the best part is like when you go to Europe and you're, you know, I every summer I try to go to Europe and book some shows over there, because that's really where the best organs in the world are. And you show up to this organ from the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, and you're faced with the technology from back then. You sit down playing the music from back then, and you realize how similar it is to what we're looking for in music now, to what we're looking for in death metal, to what people that go, like what the ravers are looking for. Like we're all kind of looking for the same thing. And so
can I ask about, oh, sorry. Is that
I have a quick question.
No, you're all good.
Are you familiar? Sorry, Joseph. I'll just jump in, squeeze it in line here. Are you familiar with this video? You know, Rob Scallon. I don't know if you've heard of his YouTube channel, but
no,
this dude, he visits. I saw this video. Do you guys see this shared? Am I sharing it right? Oh, here we go. Yeah, so he visits.
Oh yeah, I know this channel.
Yeah, okay. And he visits this like crazy organ that's like that whole room is it's like pipes. I think it's in Chicago. That's where it is. This church in Chicago. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. But it's like this insane dude. Like I mean, I saw this like years ago before I was like,
yeah.
Even knew about your stuff, even like, and I was just this came out like 2019. This was released, but I might be doing a horrible job of sharing this. I apologize. But
today MP3s are the DJs.
I'm doing the
situation. It's not now you have the physical organs that you're.
Like I'm being it's lagging super bad, but I'm being dumb. But it's like this entire okay. The entire room, I don't know what's going on with my shit. It's not working tonight, but like it's like the entire cathedral is just these pipes, dude. It's like huge and like
most. I will say, like on the East Coast, there's like the Wanamaker organ that's in a department store. It's in a Macy's in Philadelphia.
Macy's.
That's that's floor after floor filled with pipes, and there's 29,000 pipes. And believe it or not, it's not even the largest one in the world, because the largest one's in Atlantic City. And yes, actually, the video on Instagram that you guys mentioned that has that Chopin piece with the feet going. It's like it's pinned on my Instagram. That one's on that organ in Atlantic City. It's 33,000 pipes, like 1,000 stops, which is
really?
like hundreds of pipes for each one of those.
What the hell?
And it's like that's what I love about organ is it's just how much more sound can we get? How much more color? How much more how much more orchestral can we make this? It's just
you don't need to worry about an XLR. You don't need to worry about fucking mixing guy who's gonna fucking
the soundtrack is drunk again. Damn it.
None of that.
Those pipes are so loud they could make Anthony Catholic again.
Or might be go back to the Lord, dude.
The Lord being Luke LeMay.
Oh yeah.
Joseph, I'm already in there, dude.
Question yet, Joseph?
It's coming up. Man. So you have a video playing one of the oldest or largest. Now I'm mixing it up, but you've played a lot of cool organs. What are some of the highlights? And you just mentioned a couple already. What are some other? Was it you've played in Ukraine recently, or some maybe not super recently?
I played out there in 2018. There was a buddy of mine that was at school. Like his name is Orestes Smovs, which is just the best name ever. That should just be a band name. But he's this like virtuoso violinist, incredible guy. Anyways, he had me play out in Ukraine, and that was cool because there was a whole thing with like a big piece of organ rep that hadn't been played there yet, and so it was like you get to say you've premiered a piece by Olivier Messiaen, which is like this big deal 20th century composer. But I feel like the coolest experiences have been like definitely that, and also like playing in France on there's this organ in Saint-Antoine-l'Abbaye, like Saint Anthony, actually. There you go. And
that's his new name.
You guys are pulling me back to Catholicism with every sentence right now.
Dude, go back to your church, man. They're waiting for you. That's from the 1700s.
They're very forgiving people, I hear. So
they talk about being. That's the thing.
Just accept him, dude. Accept him.
But there's this organ in Paris at this church called Saint Eustache. It's the biggest organ in France. And there's a guy that was organist there for 53 years named Jean Guillou. And so I grew up like wanting to be that guy, basically. And he's this like French poet dude born in the 30s. And he has like his hair is totally all the way. He's like he plays a vampire better than any 20s German actor. And he just is that guy. But he writes this incredible atonal organ music. He's a poet and he's total virtuoso, probably one of the best organists to ever live. And I got to study with him for like a few sessions of like, bringing him his piece that he wrote that like normally you'd study like a dead guy's music. But here's this guy that's alive and he was in his 80s when I met him. And so playing that organ, that's like the biggest organ in France, and there's like 8 seconds of reverb in this Gothic church that's bigger than Notre Dame, and you're locked in there at night, and you're there at 3 a.m, and there's like one little like reading light on the organ console, and it's just this pitch black Gothic building. And,
dude, so real quick, I gotta stop you. 8 seconds of reverb. So how do you? Does that make you slow down and really like wait?
You just throw a noise gate on it, right?
Yeah. Have you listened to any 80s track with the snare? Yeah.
it makes you not hurry up, I guess, right?
It's true. I think more than anything, it forces you to listen because every church is super different. You could have a church that has 3 seconds of reverb that you have to slow down like crazy because you just can't get those 16th notes out. It just sounds like a wash. Somehow in this building,
kind of sit in your piece. A little bit more.
Somehow in this building, Somehow in this building, the 8 seconds are so clean, and you can really hear the sound travel across the building and back because it's so big that it's actually. I didn't even have to worry about it. It sounds insane, but I played my fast shit, my Chopin, whatever, at the same tempo. And you could have played a death metal song in there. You could have ripped some 16th notes or some 32nd notes, and it would have been super clean. It just depends on.
And when I say slow down, I wasn't really saying how but you're actually mentally slowing down to pay attention because you have this added factor of the 8 second delay.
You have to listen because it can throw you off for sure.
And it can really layer that makes you have to focus in that moment.
What about the shoes too?
Yeah, these things.
I've been waiting to ask that one. I was like, oh man, those shoes. I noticed. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
These are like the cheapest like ballet shoes from Amazon.
Ballet shoes? Are they like for ballet, not organ?
Yeah, but they make organ. You can go to organmaster.com if you really want like reasons to jump off the bridge. And they sell you these organ shoes, but now we're really in the woods. But
next question:
the woods,
do they make organ flip-flops?
Oh, God.
No, but if you started that, you would be filthy rich. What's your new business strategy?
Copyright CaliDeathPodcast.com. Don't
that's
fucking
like,
fuck with us.
We got some plugs. We got Battle Forge coffee. We got St. Anthony organ shoes.
Okay. You know how much worse it is to like play drums, drive a car, do a lot of things in flip-flops, like way worse. Be on that list too.
We're just trying to bring down humanity, dude.
Yeah.
One organ shoe at a time.
No, you can't be flipping and flopping when you're trying to hit those organ notes, dude. You gotta have tight.
The reason I got these is because
Thomas, in a month or two, I might want to see a video of you trying the flip-flop organ challenge, dude.
You'll have to pay for a new toe, but yeah, sure.
Damn.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was gonna say
get him some steel toe flip-flops, dude.
There you go. Now you have to pay for a new organ pedal board.
God.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't win
because they bend. And basically, the deal with that is that some of the new, like I'm talking about pushing organ technique and stuff, and like playing full on chords. So like my heel's playing a note, and my toe's playing a different note, and the other foot is playing a whole nother deal. So like having these kind of flexible shoes, and they're like a tenth of the price. So I'm down for that.
So you can get 4 notes out of just the feet alone.
Yep. Yeah.
And is that
wild?
Like you do like it's?
Oh yeah, it shows up. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it shows up it's very rare in the shit I write and like some of the arrangements and stuff. That's why I play a lot of arrangements. There's stuff like written for the organ, but there's a lot of stuff that's written for the piano that I take and like arrange for the organ, because one, you can do a whole lot more with color and stuff, and having like foreground, middle ground, background all in one instrument at the same time. But yeah, playing big pedal chords is a big part of like arranging piano music, because there's no sustain pedal, right? So if you want to hold down something at the bottom of the piano, you throw the sustain pedal down, move your hands up. On the organ, your feet have got to be playing those chords, otherwise, you can't get around all the notes. But I have this weird equation, which is that the organ can play anything ever, because I can play 14 notes at once, 5 with this hand, 5 with this hand, and 4 with the pedals. And there's only 12 notes. Which, you can disprove that if you think about it too much, but don't think about it too much. Just leave it at that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. You could play whatever you want and not even use your pinkies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. How does one make a living as an organist? Like how lucrative is the organ biz? Do you have to like be affiliated with a church? Is that like how it works pretty much?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I'm kind of working up to having kind of like a church free, career and playing concerts and having that be your mode of income. But that's really hard to do. So I'm kind of, working on that. But yeah, I teach little kids how to play the piano, and I play organ on Sunday mornings and Thursday nights. Is basically, show up, play some church hymns, play some pretty Baroque music before and after the service, and it ends up being like, I'm not religious, but it's actually kind of a blessing in disguise to have a cheerful, enthusiastic audience every week for your shit, and it might not be, I don't show up playing the craziest stuff that like I'm super stoked on, but it's I feel like seeing other freelance musicians around me, I'm really grateful for having that, because there's always a church that needs someone to play organ, you know what I mean? And it's actually it's pretty cool. Yeah. Wow. And it's even not being religious and stuff, like showing up with church hymns, and like really trying to do a good job with those, playing it in such a way that like a congregation of people that aren't musicians know when to start singing and when to breathe, and so they can feel comfortable enough singing out loud. It's kind of an art to that I've kind of I wasn't really interested in, but just by the necessity of the job is actually really rewarding.
But you're offering your services to a group of people that would benefit from your services,
and they're offering me a roof, so I'll take it.
Exactly, dude.
And an organ to practice on, because that's the other thing. Like to your question
again, that's a full circle thing, because that question is kind of definitely in the same realm. Like I knew once that was asked that would be the environment that you would most likely be getting the most.
So whether they know it or not, the church flower ladies are listening to Slayer covers on the organ sometimes when they're setting up on Saturday night. You know, it's raining blood.
That's funny. You like sneak those death songs in there too. Like
once I did this at the Boston Catholic Church, a communion at the beginning of Mr. Crowley, but super soft. And
no way!
Threw in a little hymn on top of it. Yeah.
What about baseball stadiums? Do they still, some of them?
Oh yeah, dude.
Proper organ
I knew
instrument?
a guy that played at the Red Sox, that played at Fenway, and then I moved back here. But that's like a lucrative art, and they play all kinds of covers and interesting things. I haven't looked into that. But that'd be so sick. Can you imagine playing a Dodger Stadium? Like,
right.
You just have to really know how to do it.
I mean, you got to know it in all 12 keys, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, that's playing a bar version of a guitar player, other piano player, you know.
Yeah.
As like, an organist who has all the knowledge that he just dropped on us for the last.
That's like the Margaritaville of organ music.
I've just been so.
You get a request for a Rivers of Nile song. You're like, is Anthony at the Dodger Stadium?
For real though, I mean, I'm gonna tell you this right now, dude. This episode has made me sit back and just fucking. I just like
so cool.
I got fucking zombified. Dude,
I do that to people in all the worst ways. Yeah.
No, but there was just things that I just was like, why do you speak of a person or speak as a person that loves music so much and you have none of this knowledge? What are you doing? You need to fucking open a book again, dude. What the fuck, dude? Open the fucking book. Stop reading about fucking, you know, this and that. Like, this is a thing that you do a podcast about every single week, and yes, it's just a little like niche area of the umbrella of music, but just to not know at least a basic history of music in general, I need to have that if I'm gonna do this
in a way. But also you're being too hard on yourself. But yes, I mean there's great music everywhere, and it's cool to know as much of it.
And I'm not saying it in a negative way.
So much, I know, but you know so much more music than like one episode you were like mentioned Aphex Twin just randomly, and I was like, I haven't listened to that. So when I got into it, you know, I wanted to let Aphex know that Cali Death Podcast got me into his music. So
again, that bubble of like time and space that I've been in, I've tried to. I've never done 365 degrees. There's always a part that I have not hit.
Seriously, yeah.
And I'm gonna keep trying to figure it out.
Let's see how that, you know, degree pays off at a music when you're walking around every other aisle. Yeah. See how far you can get. And, you know.
It's also really funny to have people with the in music, but they're studying like, here I am fascinated by death metal, or like here I am fascinated by Dave Mustaine and trying to understand how he's writing. Like, how does Holy Wars stand up and make sense as a musical structure? And he doesn't have a degree in music. He probably doesn't even know how to read music. And there's skills to be learned everywhere. And it's really all about doing the thing and just doing what you think sounds cool.
And enjoying it along the way, dude.
Being a fan first.
Yeah.
Doing this podcast and enjoying the thing along the way with you right now, dude.
God, you guys are so cool.
No, for sure. Dude. Yeah. Stop saying that. But I mean, we are kind of cool. But we're having a great time tonight, dude.
What did I come back into? Oh my goodness.
I just realized that
everybody's sucking each other's dick right now.
It's AC, but Oh, Kansas City, that's sick.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, he's representing.
Wow, I'm thick, but that's amazing.
But yeah, dude. No, this is.
I'm just sad Joel's not here. Oh, Joseph shot me down.
Oh, sorry.
Did you take it off? Oh no, it's all good.
I did, but
St. Anthony, dude.
it's okay. We're
That's
playing
who
with the
I was
banners,
named
everybody.
after.
Oh, the banners are
Yeah.
golden.
We got some.
Yeah,
the banners
Joseph
like
deleted mine though.
I feel like they're my prompter, you know, like. And so the thing about 20th century classical music is totally St. Anthony #Buck, and
yeah, totally.
Okay,
right.
so
and I'm not trying to wait. Oh, go for it, pro.
Oh, he's serious right now.
Do you have any upcoming shows, performances? Recitals?
Yeah, I'm playing at this guy's house. This guy named Stan Harris has like a house concert series in LA. What should it it'll be on my Instagram, but it's like it's like a mailing list you write in, and there's a bunch of like classical people to play on it. That's cool. And then I'm playing at a little church in Glendora. I have something right now. I'm kind of in a like moved back to LA from Boston in November, so I'm kind of in the whole like figuring out what life is going to look like and all that. And I've been very preoccupied with trying to make some metal and trying to make some synth heavy bass music metal stuff with proggy classical music shit, and that's kind of taken up a lot of my time. And I'm trying to figure out some management thing with organ concerts and stuff, so it's a little bit at a standstill, even though I'm trying to, you know, there's stuff on the horizon. I'm doing I have a bunch of European dates over the summer that are going to happen, but between now and then it's a little bit quiet. I am, however, March 25th 2025, so this coming March, there's a concert at a series in LA. They're going to announce it soon, but called Pianospheres. And yes, it is a TV on the wall. It's not a synthesizer, unfortunately, but that'd be sick if it was.
A screen sync.
Chiefs won, yeah, whatever. Okay. But this French 20th century composer called Pierre Boulez, he had probably heard of him. He has a bunch of piano sonatas. There's 3 of those. These big piano pieces are about, you know, one's 10 minutes, 2 of them are 30 minutes long, and they're really, really atonal and really, really nasty. I don't have the score here, but it's like it's like 40 pages of music at really insane tempos and stuff. So I'm gonna be playing his 3 piano sonatas on his 100th birthday, even though he passed away a few years back. But in downtown LA, I'll keep you guys in the loop, because I feel like that kind of atonal music is really close in like pitch content to a lot of the more progressive death metal stuff.
Dude, R.I.P.
Actually, I wrote Colin Marston, and he's writing a little piece for that.
Crazy!
He's writing a little piano piece for the Boulez concert. So
I was gonna say, just R.I.P. to who I can't say his name. I forgot his name. Yeah. So R.I.P. to him, and you are part of the forefront of baton passing that down the line, just like we're talking about these composers from, you know, a time that recording wasn't there's the guys today are going to be recorded, but you playing it, you're gonna, I think that's so much more of a baton pass than just, you know, YouTube link, here you go.
The recorded music is obviously a huge step in the right direction from sheet music, but it is really cool to get to like really dig in. Like, it's been the last year that I've been working on these pieces, and I'm not even halfway done learning the notes and like really digging into like this person's thought and this person's ideas is a really cool. It's a really cool, like, getting your hands around that music is a really cool way to understand it and to live it in a way that you don't do with, because, like, you know, being a classical musician, I listened to Necrophagist, or I listened to the Cabinet album, and I'm like, cool, where's the score? I want to learn it. It sounds awesome. You know?
Yeah.
So before we wrap it up, let's talk about your composition. Do you compose?
I do. And for the longest time, I was writing everything by hand, and that's still the prime way that I create stuff. It's like in the last couple of years, I've gotten into like production, and so I've kind of like did a bit of synthwave and stuff to try to understand what the fuck is going on in Logic or Ableton and stuff, and how to record music. But yeah, the last 15 years I've written stuff by hand, and it's, you know, it's organ pieces, it's orchestra pieces. I have a piece for 5 cellos and orchestra behind them. And I have a piano piece. I have like a 40-minute violin piece for that Ukrainian violinist I talked about. It's
What do you write on? Like, what program do you use for writing that stuff? Like,
I pencil and paper.
I was just about to say, he said handwritten, dude. So I was like,
I have like an orchestra score that's like 3 feet tall with like 40 lines of music. That's all by hand.
Do you
Oh, sorry.
Do you input them in the computer though? Like,
I put it in Sibelius.
Sibelius, okay.
Yeah. So do you have a session where you're writing? You know, maybe it's a half a day, all day, where you get through it and you're just like, yeah, I gotta fucking.
Yep.
How does that feel, dude?
Oh, my process is about 1.5 years for 10 minutes of music. So it's. Yeah, like I'll be really happy if because I write really particularly dense music where my whole thing is, it comes out of insecurity, it comes out of also like always wanting the heavier, cooler, more complex shit. So like the classical music I write is like really dense, atonal music that's got tons of layers and stuff. So like a bar might be like, oh, here's a 532 bar, and the tempo is like is like the 16th note is equal to like 127.5 BPM. And I have a matrix of different dynamics that I'm going and it's like there's this whole process that goes through it, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna write a rhythm that's beamed over, that's like in the span of these 5 32nd notes I'm gonna have 13 64ths, and within that the last 7 of those will be condensed into 9, so I can have this like interpolation of stuff. So like coming from a background of doing that's why like Defeated Sanity and stuff is really appealing, because you know, I sit down with that music and it's like, oh, I totally get where they're coming from.
It hits that nerve.
And it's the same kind of, that's why I love death metal. Again, it's the same kind of thing of like, how much more can I fit into this small thing? But yeah, a typical day of composing is, oh, I'm so happy I wrote 3 seconds of music today.
Jesus Christ. That makes me feel pretty good about myself.
And then 9 months later, or, you know, 6 months later, 1.5 years later, sometimes for a bigger piece, I'll then sit down at the organ and start learning it. And that's at least another 6 months of me pulling out a calculator to be like, fuck, man, I wrote this like rhythm and I don't know. I have 7 in the space of this and the space of that, this like triply embedded thing in the pedals. And then I got this thing that comes, you know, so I'll literally whip out a calculator to figure out ratios and then erase to make sure I got the proportions right, that the polyrhythm actually interacts a little further out on paper.
I think it's beautiful that music and math can work like that, though, dude.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It actually is fascinating that sound and math can
it's
communicate.
Physics. I mean,
I don't know if it's cool or if it's self-sabotaging at this point, but you know,
it's human organization. That's what it is. It's human organization, dude.
Okay. Here's my last question that I anticipate having. Say you're exposed to modern, classical, atonal, whatever, but you have no like frame of reference. Like how would you begin as like someone without knowing the history or whatever to like start appreciating the music? Like what would be just your advice to someone so that they at least get something out of it? Like what could you think about while you're listening to it, or what is there?
There's this composer I really love, this French Greek composer called Xenakis, and he talks about like being in Athens in protests against the fascist invaders, and in a crowd of 10,000 people chanting slogans all at one time, and having, you know, the Nazis shooting into the crowd, and having that chant be like slowed down and sped up at the same time until it's just a cloud of sound. And so you like understanding that analogy, like just hearing that incredibly brutal description of that event, and then hearing his orchestra music, you actually hear that happening. And I feel like contemporary classical music is, because it's so like esoteric and so complex and so insane, it ends up sounding almost childish sometimes. Like it just sounds like you're banging the keys, or it sounds like, you know, like that early electronic music sounds like noise or sounds like a train wreck or something like that. But there is a certain amount of humor with that too, where, you know, this guy spent 5 years writing this piece and it sounds like crap, but it kind of sounds awesome also.
Yeah.
And I also feel like if you can get into the orchestra music, it's much easier to appreciate how that was immediately transferred into film music. And obviously with horror, you know, you go to any horror movie, there's some cool orchestral clusters of dissonant chords, or like some really spooky kind of, you know, gestural stuff. But also, like, you go to Tom and Jerry, and you go to, you know, there's a little scene where where he like goes a little around a corner, and you hear a 12-note tone row, which is like the serial system from the atonal composers, because those guys studied with Arnold Schoenberg, that invented that system, who taught at USC and UCLA, who taught all these film composers.
Yeah. So what do you think about Carl Stalling, who did a lot of early Looney Tunes stuff, dude? That's actually called back to Ron Jarsenbeck. Shout out. That was one of his influences, and Carl Stalling was the guy who did all that early Looney Tunes stuff, and really incorporated, you know, real music into the movement of the picture, and writing around the what was happening in the scene.
That's so cool.
The walking up the stairs and things, all that was involved in the piece itself.
Right. That's amazing. I would say, I don't know those composers that well. I feel like if I were to recommend an avant-garde composer to metalheads, it'd probably be Art of Metal 3 by Jan Robin. Here, I'll write it over here. And it's a piece for bass clarinet and orchestra, and it's really gnarly. And I feel like
bass clarinet, huh?
A lot of that avant-garde music is really angry. It's written by French people just after the war or stuff like that. You know, that there's some really gnarly history to it, so it kind of can tap that vein a little bit. This piece is more.
Can you play some bass clarinet for us right now?
Exactly.
I did probably pick the wrong episode to debut. I should have saved it, because I feel like the honky squeaky sounds would have like been music to everyone's ears tonight.
No, that was perfect, dude. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Oh,
man,
damn.
I got to get that thing fixed. That'd be sick.
Anything the professor can't do.
Oh yeah, dude. I suck. You are
the opposite of suck, dude. Come on now.
Yeah. Well,
that's so funny.
It's a different brain than yours that's saying this right now. You are an awesome dude, but
I do want to. I want to hear this bass clarinet Jan Robbins stuff. I'm gonna check this out for sure.
It's really gnarly.
Can we just talk over it the whole time and still listen to it? And then
it was my ringtone for a bit. It was my alarm clock.
I gotta turn my AC back on. It's so fucking hot today, dude.
God, is it really?
It is sweltering down. Yeah, and like I keep trying to keep it off because it's like loud.
Damn, it's a 10:45 and it's so hot, dude.
Dude, yeah, I'm frying. Like,
damn, it's 86.
How's that coastal weather for you down there, dude?
Oh, it's beautiful here, dude.
But it's like
amazing.
It's like you get closer to the beach and then it's more humid. So it's
true.
Straight off. Like, I mean, I'm glad I don't
chilly nights, dude. I'm gonna miss that very soon.
Oh my gosh. Well, you guys, I gotta teach. I got a guy I teach in Singapore. That's my student. He's the best. He's Gerard. So I gotta go teach an organ lesson to.
You gotta do a lesson right now.
Oh, yeah, it's like 2:30 p.m. for him now, I guess. But
no way,
you dude, savage.
All right, dude.
This is dedicated guy.
Teach a lesson. That's sick.
I can't believe I was on Cali Death. Do you have any idea what a highlight?
I can't believe you schooled us on so much, dude. You made me really want to focus on digging into not only a classical and what is it, Baroque? I want to get deeper into that, dude.
There you go.
Let's do
hashtag Buck.
All right,
It's
Anthony.
Buck music.
Let's do like a Baroque
Sebastian
listening,
Buck, dude.
Let's do a Baroque listening club. We'll all like listen to Bach and then talk about it.
And you'll work on your severed set at the same time. It'll click.
Yeah, it'll all work, dude.
Yeah. And real fast, October 6th, unannounced, but we'll be To Violently Vomit live in Long Beach. If you're around, Thomas, that'd be sick. It's a Sunday night.
What day is that again? You're back. You're playing a TVV set? I thought
Sunday, October 6th.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. It's a warm up for our show in Mexico, which is the next weekend.
Awesome, man.
But it'll be formally announced in a few days. So I'm just throwing this
out. All right. Hell yeah, dude.
Apply in demand.
And we didn't give any details on the Texas Domination Fest. Got to do that one real quick. 26th, 27th, 28th. I'm playing on the 28th with Severed Savior, and it's going to be rad, guys. Flying out with one of my oldest friends. We have not made an official announcement about him yet, but we're going to make it. Ricky, what up, dude? All right.
Are there some SoCal dates? Are there some SoCal dates for that?
No, it's just it's just a one festival spot. That's what we're doing right now. Maybe it might turn into more. That'd be sick if it was.
That's so
Jomo,
cool.
Shout out. All right. Thomas, dude, this was really fucking cool, dude. This is exactly what I want this episode to be.
I loved this.
So cool.
Yeah. You gave me so much cool information that made me want to continue down the rabbit hole of music that I've been digging into for fucking 30 years, bro. So
that's what you guys have done for me, though. Like getting to know all these bands, like being like, well, these guys interviewed Luke LeMay, they know what's up. Like, okay, Defeated Sanity, what's that? You know, like all these bands have discovered things to you guys. So,
dude, that's so rad that we could give that to you, and you gave us. You reciprocated tonight, dude. Yeah. You reciprocated tonight. You gave back, and I thank you for that, dude.
Thank you guys so much. I'll look forward to listening to the next Cali Death.
We'll definitely keep in touch, dude.
See you in Long Beach,
dude. There's bands out there that could use some organ on their shit, dude. So
and literally for, I guess, last shout out, but like if you want keys and stuff, I just love the Cali Death scene and all that. And I just want experience. Even if you want live keys for shit that I'm not contributing creatively to, just let me know. Seriously.
A really fucking cool collab that would definitely work. So let's make it happen. We'll be pumping you, dude. All right.
Thank you guys.
Had a great time. Yeah. You guys have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. Battle for